councillors to be aware of the time and the amount of business we need to get through. And I'd really like people not to speak if they're just speaking to agree with the person who's just spoken, unless there's some really vital thing that they want on record. You know, and to keep it as brief as you possibly can.
Madam Chairman, could I just make one point?
Yes.
I understood that when we said we were going to do grants at 2.5 years, I thought it was just that we were going to have a special meeting just for grants.
We were, but then COVID interrupted and we agreed in this committee that we would deal with them as they came in.
I thought we were going to go back to that original choice. So if that had been the case, we wouldn't have had as big an agenda as we've got tonight. And I don't think it's possible for you to get through what we've got to get through.
Well, all we can do is try. I'm going to suggest that we suspend normal standing orders and largely, well, I was going to say, speak to the public one at a time and give them, and just answer questions, but you can have about 20 minutes if you like, since you're the only person here.
15. 3 minutes.
It was a joke.
I know,
I will start it.
As far as I know, public question time, we don't have anybody other than grant applicants. So I'm obliged to say these meetings can now be recorded, and we will be recording them on that phone up there, but if anybody wishes to record it in some other way, we will do what we can to help you do so, but that will put it on the YouTube channel. Does anybody wish to record it? No? Apologies for absence, Rich, do you want to quickly?
Yes, we've had apologies from Councillor Davis, Councillor Bustard, Councillor East and Councillor Greaves that said he's likely to be late. You all have the reasons for that.
That's right. You all know the reasons. They're emailed to you and we're voting on the reasons.
Yeah.
Are there any reasons that anybody doesn't agree with? No. So we approve all of those apologies. Thank you. Any personal and disclosable pecuniary interests that we ought to be aware of, Paul?
The only thing that I want to clarify, on one of the grant applications, the one for Airport Playgroup, my wife used to work in the playgroup. She now is just a voluntary bookkeeper for them. If it is that you want me not to be involved, I'll keep out of it.
I don't know, what do all the councillors think?
She's asked me that if there's nobody here from the playgroup, could I speak on behalf of them and be a member of the public for that item?
Right.
There should be somebody.
And it may
Oh,
not,
no, there isn't. They've sent a report actually.
but you're
Right.
assuming that somebody needs to speak, whereas reading the application could be persuasive. Mr. Councillor Pogson.
I just want to say that I'm okay with the Councillor Dixon's impartiality if you want to speak on behalf of the player as a member of the public. And I don't really see that there's a conflict of interest, other than what he's already described. And
I will not vote on that.
That's your choice, but I don't see no reason why
Thank
you
you.
should suspend it from the
Councillor
order.
Butler.
Yeah, I need to declare an interest in item 62, the grant application from Friends
Oh, from Clifford.
as an treasurer.
Councillor Hobley, did you have any?
No, I don't have any.
And I have, I'm now a trustee of the Civic, so I need to declare an interest for the bits about the Civic.
The Civic Hall.
Yes. Any written requests for new DPIs?
No.
Any items on the agenda that we feel should be discussed in private session?
Sorry, can I just check something? Sorry,
Yeah.
I know we've gone through this in the past before, but about trustees of the Civic, who are trustees on behalf of the parish council.
Yeah.
I thought the view was that that is not an interest in
Ah,
this
sorry. Okay, thank you.
Because I'm sure we had a debate
Yes,
about
I think you're right.
Yeah.
So,
Could I try to get things through quicker? Yeah, I think it would be quicker to go through the grants. If we took the grants in private session, as there is so much money involved.
Yeah.
And I think there could be a little bit of controversy on some of them.
I think,
I would think it'd be better to be
do you mean private as in not recorded or private without the public?
without public.
I don't think we can do that.
I don't think we're allowed, I think the law is that we have to, I mean, the member of the public we have will be going first, and I very much doubt if she's going to stay for all the others.
Well, I might now, actually. Now I know that it might be private. I might.
And you are entitled to, should you wish to.
I'm fully aware of that.
But I don't think we're allowed to just make them private because we might not like them, if
I
you know what I
think,
mean.
I think we got advice about that previously
Yeah.
from my LCO.
It's
Okay.
things that need to be private are things like people's salaries and what have you,
I
usually.
didn't know whether the Gartside building needed to be private, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to the minutes. Are you?
Councillor, do you want to consider that then? About whether
Yes,
the
sorry,
Gartside-
Oh, sorry.
I was going to suggest that possibly the item 66, the outside building, might be taken by.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Rich. Are you all content that the minutes are accurate of the previous meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. So that's, can I see all those in favour of approving? Thank you. That's everybody. Okay, Grant, sorry. Would you like to say hello and introduce yourself? Say a few words.
Okay, so my name is Dawn Jepson. I am a member of the Friends of Cinder Hills Park, and I have been asked by the treasurer and chair, who doesn't feel able, and I'm going to be very transparent with you, able, she felt rather intimidated by the fact of coming and presenting. I am a teacher, I am a counsellor, so I'm quite confident and comfortable speaking in front of people, so I was encouraged with my hand up my back to come along and yes, and I was able to scratch from my bottom to right up to the top of my scalp actually. So yes, it was very twisted, but no, it wasn't at all. It was, I live in Cinder Hills, I've lived there for 18 years. The park hasn't had anything done to it in 20 years. So yes, I am very passionate. I go there daily to walk my dog through the minefield of poo. So yes, I am very passionate about the place, so it wasn't much of a twist to come. Would you like to know more about the proposal at this point, or would you like to ask me direct questions about the monies?
Is there anything you feel is we need particularly to know that goes beyond the application?
Do you know what I would, and I know Mary has been to the park, I don't know where anybody else geographically lives. I think that seeing is believing that park, that area, it's not fit for purpose as it stands. It is not used because of it is not fit for purpose. The park itself, one of the climbing, and I know that's different, it's been dealt with, but this is an historic thing. One of the apparatus in the park is 3 metres from the ground. I'm about the same size as the average child, and I can't get anywhere near it, so, you know, they can't get on it. There are 2 baby swings. That is the park. Since we've invested in the community gardens, there is at least 20 people coming regularly to those events on a Sunday. So it's starting to be, Cinder Hills is very isolated. We don't, every other village or hamlet, whatever you want to call within this community, there is either a pub or a shop or a village hall. There is something in that community. Cinder Hills has nothing, and it desperately does need something. As a ex-social worker and as a counsellor now, and I don't mean a counsellor, I mean a mental health counsellor, they need something that they can have as their own to give them a sense of pride and community and to bring them out of that social isolation. I mean, the buses don't even run on a weekend, you know, they truly are isolated. So the accessibility for that park, the pathway, to join things up, that's what it's for. It's to make it so that the community garden with the park and the surrounding area, you know, are within there to get up to the rec.
Okay.
And an outdoor space like the shelter, you know, it's needed desperately.
Okay, thank you.
In
I
terms of,
want to ask you a question. I mean, I think what we want to do is use this time for questions. I've got one for certain. We very rarely, in fact, we're not supposed to give grants of more than £5,000 in this committee. We can't.
Yeah.
So if you could only have up to 5,000, what would your priorities be on your list?
There are two priorities because without them it all falls to pieces. So it would be the connecting path and it would be a sheltered area. Because otherwise you've still got this, you've got the raised beds which are
That
found.
doesn't work though. It's kind of one or the other really.
Well, one of them is for £2,000 for the wooden
It comes to
gazebo.
4,700.
Yeah, 4,700, yeah. And then and what I was going to say, and the remainder would be,
You can't do the path without the edging of the path.
That's true.
well, with it,
And the excavation. If you have the path, it's the top 3 items, isn't it?
yeah,
Which is, you can either have that or the gazebo, I guess.
I think that the path is crucial.
Right.
And if it were and that connection bit, and if there were any remaining money, so if we have got the path at 2.7.
No, we give for specific things. We won't give what you need and a bit for something else.
No, sorry. If it was to be the one there, so the path and the timber, that gives us, and the workshops, that falls within the 5,000, doesn't it?
Yeah. 4,450, I think.
Yeah.
Madam Chairman, could I just ask the
Of
point?
course.
If we were to grant money for those things, would the job fall down because there's the other things that you've got on your wish list? Because I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, Kirklees, is it their responsibility? Are we allowed to do things on Kirklees property? Do Kirklees give us permission to do it? Would Kirklees give these people permission? Is there going to be insurance in place? Because it might invalidate any insurance that the Kirklees Council have if certain works are done. And I don't want it to fall back on them as well as on us. And to look bad on us if we're supporting this. I know years ago we did various play areas in the district that were chosen, but they had to be up to a certain specification, and that Kirklees had to adopt them.
Right.
And this is what I'm a bit
I
concerned
take
about.
your point. Good point. Councillor Barker?
I think it was Councillor Fox.
Councillor Foxon?
Yeah, just to clarify that, who owns the park?
It's not Kirklees neighbourhood. I don't know what they're called now. They've just changed the name of the.
Was it formerly Kirklees Neighbourhood Housing?
Yes.
Which now says now Kirklees.
Whatever, yeah.
It's Kirklees,
Yeah.
People's National, so it's Kirklees.
Yeah.
And then the second question, if that's all right,
Mhm.
how imperative that this grant this money comes in this financial year and not next financial year? You know, would it, is it an imperative that it's paid for that you get the grant in this financial year?
Can I give you an absolute honest answer?
Yeah.
Because this opportunity may not come up in the next financial year, and also it's about the park. There was talk of that park being done for 5 years and things, and I think I think this is going to restore faith in the parish council, in the community that they live in. So it's about seeing that something's happening.
Hang on, but next financial year is
It's
April.
yeah. Which then we could apply, because I was thinking when you said about, well, there's only so much money, potentially, because I know that you can apply several times, okay? It's not just a one-off thing, because this is the first time we've done this, is that in April to come back with a proposition to then for the gazebo, because actually it's grim up at that park. It's a wind tunnel, and actually people probably more in springtime the gazebo then.
Okay, I'll lay my cards completely on the table,
Yeah.
like the financials of the parish council are.
Yeah.
In the budget that you're applying for, there's a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Later on in the agenda in this meeting, there's a proposition, I believe, to move some of our reserves to earmark reserves for the upkeep and the benefit of, and it's quite a substantial amount of money for all the parks within the home valley.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make any
Mm-hmm.
sense? So, I see no reason for, and that's for Kirklees parks. It's basically looking at doing some joint work with Kirklees to upgrade the parks, and we'll put some money in, you put some money in. and that's what we're looking at. And it's under the further agenda item on our agenda. So that would help us give you the money if you came for it next year. Does that make any sense?
It does make sense,
Yeah.
but again, I am just, things, as we are fully aware, things change and things have changed, and it's just a little bit to walk away and be like, well no, they're going to give this it next year. It's like, well no, it's like putting something in place. Do you know that this pathway thing, as I said as well, to get that path in, and do you know that it isn't even accessible for some people as it stands?
Have these
Chair,
works
can
been,
I make a proposal?
have these works been approved by please?
Yes, it's gone through.
Councillor, have you finished your question? Councillor Blackie, I know the data's good.
I was just going to respond really to the point that Councillor Gibson made really, which is that Kirklees Council has been working very closely with the Friends of St Hills Park and is fully aware of this application, and so there will be no problem from my direction.
Sorry, can I make a proposal?
Hang on, Councillor Dixon.
Can I make a proposal that we support this project, which I think sounds very good, but to the tune of £4,450 to cover the path and associated edging, etc. And then I would suggest to the Friends of St Hills Park that they come back to us in April, and we can bear that in mind when we're setting our budget for next year for the shelter itself. Because my sense as well is that the shelter will be obviously it's useful all year round once it's there, but actually in terms of constructing it and really making the most of it, that's more in the springtime, so there's no reason you couldn't come to us right in that financial year, but the actual construction of the path needs to be there before the shelter's there.
Yeah.
So I propose that we award, as I say, £4,450, which is towards the three path.
Well, we
items and
usually go to
excavation.
whether we're going to give it or not after the applicants have left, and we go back
Yeah.
to them the following day, but I understand your proposal,
I think we have to.
which we can...
Can we do that? Because they want to do more things that I feel uncomfortable at.
Yeah, we can continue.
So I'd like
We'll
to-
have a continued discussion. Thank you for coming. We will let you know tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Well, as early as possible,
Yeah.
but probably tomorrow.
It'll be
Okay.
tomorrow.
And thank you for coming.
Thank
We'll
you.
get back to you
listening.
quickly.
Thank you very much. Take care, everyone.
And you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Right, we might as well continue discussing that one.
We'll go and see if anybody else is there.
We might as- Don't bring them up just yet till we've been able to discuss this one.
Yeah.
We might as well get it done since we've started.
Well, I've laid out a proposal,
Yes.
so...
Yes,
I'm uncomfortable with it being that Kirklees are the owners of the land. These people have neither got a lease nor anything. And I think if we're doing Kirklees' work for them, it's again seen to me as double taxation for the people. I can understand the reasoning behind these people, but I can't understand the cost is astronomical. It seems to me a lot of money. I don't think we've seen any bills or any estimates for doing the work. And until we've seen estimates for doing the work, I don't think we can look to give them the money. If
we have seen estimates.
I've not seen
They don't all get circulated to all the committee. Rich and I have seen estimates, haven't we?
Well, we've seen where, well, I asked her where the prices that are on the application were from, and she said, the prices for the path are from Andy Wickham from Kirklees Kirklees Parks. So the price of the path is directly from Kirklees Parks. And the price for the gazebo structure is from visiting the community garden at Sue Hill. So that's just something that they've been to see. But in terms of the path, it's come from Kirklees themselves.
So it's how much they would expect to pay for a path.
It's Kirklees would expect to pay that, and it's Kirklees' property. That to me, in itself, stands out that it's going to be an excessive amount of money, and that I think, in all fairness, if we were to match fund anything that Kirklees were prepared to do, I'd look more favourably on that, and that if it's Kirklees' responsibility, I can't see why
Right, okay, you make
we should do it.
we've got lots to get through and we've got several opinions on this, I think. We have a proposal from Councillor Hogley on the table.
I'll second that proposal.
You second the proposal. We'll vote on the proposal then. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3. Do I get a vote?
Yes.
Four. So I'm afraid that's carried, Paul, which is to give them the 4,000.
Well, that, I might as well go home then, we're going to be doing that for all these.
So that's 17,000 left, that means 17,079 left in that particular basic pot.
Okay, so we've done that one.
Was anybody else there?
You've got 4 people waiting.
Alright, do you want to...
4 people?
4 people, yeah. So we've got Martin Wilkinson first, Hepworth Band. Do you
Yeah.
want me to ask
Yeah.
him to come in first?
Send him up and Chris Riddler if he's there as
Yeah.
well from the cricket club.
Can I just say, if we're going to judge these against each other, deciding them one after the other really isn't going to,
No.
Yeah, I don't know whether we
It's
just
not
leave it
going
until
to-
the end. Yeah.
you know.
I didn't think there were anybody
I
else
know you
to
didn't.
come in. That's
I know
why
you
I
didn't,
did it
that's
on
that's
that
fine,
one.
not
And I
criticism.
agree. We'll
Yeah.
we'll get the questions.
You use some time up, we would have wasted them, we'd wait for him to come.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, can we,
So it'll be Martin Wilkinson first from the Hepworth Band.
Martin, can you, you have up to 3 minutes to make your case, but we have all read your application.
Okay.
And people may have questions, which maybe, it's up to you whether you want to make a pitch for it or just very briefly state.
Just a very quick pitch, if that's okay. I've literally got a minute's worth of text, which I'll just read through rather than blathering through. Anyway, firstly, on behalf of Hepworth Brass Band, I'd like to thank the Parish Council for considering the application for grant funding, the award of which will enable us to complete vital renovation work on the band room, which is Dobroy Mills in Jackson Bridge. So since the start of the pandemic, almost 2 years ago, we've been unable to use the band room for rehearsals. It doesn't provide adequate space or ventilation to ensure COVID safety for the members. Over the past 12 months and through challenging times, the band has, however, continued to support local events, the community commemorations, celebrations, etc., as it has done over the years since 1882. But we've been forced to rent rehearsal space locally as an alternative, which is not sustainable either financially or operationally. So a full scheme of work for the band room has been commissioned, with the main elements being to remove internal walls, the ceilings, to provide more usable space in volume, and to install additional windows for ventilation. The total proposed cost of the works are £31,000 and will be scheduled to be carried out during the first 4 months of next year by local building contractors. In the past year, the band have been grateful to receive grants totaling £10,000, namely from yourselves, from One Community Kirklees and from the Bright Green Community Trust. We've also raised a further £17,000 through our own fundraising and prize money efforts. Therefore, we currently have a shortfall of £4,000 before we can progress with the works. So we're nearly there, and completing the works would help to ensure that Hepworth maintains its status as one of Yorkshire's very finest brass bands, and we remain an important asset of the home band community. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? No?
Just to clarify, the total cost of the project is £31,185 and you're requesting £4,000.
That's correct.
And then it's the specific things, it's for window ceiling
Roof-
type.
roof-
That's roof insulation and gutter slate,
Yeah.
ridge tower there.
Thank you. We will get back to you. We'll discuss this.
Yeah.
We'll discuss all of them when we're done. And we'll get back to you hopefully tomorrow. Thank you very much for coming.
That's great, thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, cheers.
And you will,
I'm Chris Riddler from Homford Cricket Club.
right? would you like to say anything, or I'll just draw our attention to the things you think are
Can
particular?
I just make the point that the application is just for the fencing, it's not for the fencing and the CCTV, so it's for £6,000 for fencing. Is that, you were aware of that, weren't you?
Yes, that's right, yes, that's right. 'Cause
The other thing that you should know is that we don't give more than 5,000. We are not allowed to give more than 5,000. It has to go to full council.
Yeah.
So you would only get, you know, the most we could give you would be 5/6.
Yeah, well, at the time when we put the proposal in, which was actually a couple of years ago, but it got sort of derailed because of COVID, and that was the cost for the project. Unfortunately, everything's gone up in price.
Yes.
So it's like 8 to 11 at the moment, depending on, because it's 145 metres across the back of the cricket club. I don't know if you know the club well, but as you walk, it's where you walk down the side, you've got the cricket club, then you've got the river. Between the cricket club and the river, there is a fence. You can't really see it because it's like a mesh, but it is actually getting pretty run down at the moment. We reckon it's got a couple of years left.
Excuse me.
So because of COVID, we've had no income or anything like that. So we managed to get a grant from Kirklees Council for £10,000, which just helped the club sort of tick over while we didn't have any funds come in. But we've got a fundraising page that we've set up now to cover the difference from any grant to the total. But it's just such a lot of money for a club that's just a charity really. At the end of the day, we don't actually make any money. It's just a members club that we're just trying to keep kids, dog
Keep it
walkers, or
going,
whatever.
yeah.
But we just don't want anyone to end up in the river really. And it's not at that stage yet. But if we don't do something about it soon, you know, it will fall down and there will be holes appearing, and you know, that river's pretty ferocious. So we're just doing everything we can really to try and raise the funds to do it, whether it's by ourselves or you know, from goodwill from your good selves and people like that. So.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Hobby.
Just in terms of picturing it, obviously I know where the cricket club is and obviously where the river is, and I'm conscious that as you go into Sands recreation ground, obviously there's a park alongside the river, there's no fence. Is the fence because of the steepness of the banking, or is it also to keep cricket balls in? Because I'm not quite sure what kind of size fence that you're looking at putting in.
It's about 1.5 metres. Unfortunately, it won't stop the cricket balls because they fly. If they do get 6, then it goes well past the 1.5 metres. But
it depends on the calibre of the batsman.
on our last season, we didn't get too many 6s, but it's mainly because we've got a good junior setup for about 80 kids from 4 years old to 11, and when they're training on the pitch, you know, before and after, they can run around and things like that. And we do get people coming from the Sands, but it's the far end that we're just making sure that our cricket club and the river are completely separated, so you can't go from one to the other. There used to be a walkway that came across. I don't know if you know. There's actually a little bridge.
I've seen it, I've seen it many times.
Yeah, and we were looking at actually sort of repairing that and bringing it up to scratch, because it's been when one of the tides was really high, it actually took concreted in metal bar out from the bottom of it, so we just have to sort of fence it off. Whether that would be any use to anyone to have it fixed back up, because in the 60s and 70s that road from the Sands wasn't there. People used to come over from the river into the bowling club and the cricket club 30-40 years ago, so the road is actually quite a new feature.
What sort of fence is it? Is it wood or mesh? Or
At the moment it's just mesh.
what are you going to build?
It's something similar. It's like
A mesh fence?
Yeah, it's
Right.
V-mesh it's called. A wooden fence would just be ridiculous price, because it's 145 metres, 160 yards long, which it'd be lovely to have a nice white picket fence across, but yeah,
It's not going to happen.
we need a very good benefactor for something like that. So
Sorry, can I clarify
Yeah.
that? Is it for security, or is it just to discourage children from accidentally running into the river?
it's safety, mainly child safety is the main
Because I'm
concern.
not quite sure how big is that. As I
Yeah,
say, I'm just
yeah.
conscious that there is
It
further
depends,
down.
but
There's
it's such a
a
drop.
big drop.
It's such a long way.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
is slight, but there are
Yeah.
areas where it's a proper big drop, and there are a lot of trees that lose, you know, that would want to grab onto, but you really don't want anyone
there is a
coming
need.
close. Yeah, it's not like on the sand; it's pretty flat, isn't it? You can go
Yes,
in
it's
and come out. It's
I've
a lot
two,
more dangerous than that.
I've 2 points I'd like to make.
Yes,
The first one, it was rumoured a while ago, and I believe some negotiations with the supermarket took place. Is that now quashed? Is that not going to happen?
But that was finished before my time, and I've been there 5 or 6 years ago.
It's never going to happen.
Tesco's, wasn't it?
Right. The other question, are you VAT registered?
No, we don't.
Right.
We don't even. I think we're going to take over about.
No, but when we're looking at all these large amounts of money, it depends who the contractor is, whether they're a major contractor or a minor contractor, as to whether they're VAT registered.
Yeah, no,
I just wanted to see, because that makes a substantial difference to the cost.
It does, because when we think it's 10,000, then all of a sudden we find out it's 12,000. We can't get the 2,000 back. Is
Well,
Right.
okay, any other questions from anybody? No?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Councillor
Oh,
Potts.
sorry.
Yeah. So do you own the land right up to the river? Are you the riparian owners? Such.
we own it up to. It might be halfway across the river.
So you are the riparian owners?
So,
Yeah.
yeah, we like to do something with the trees as well. But
Yeah.
they're so big and at such a strange angle. I think that's.
So if someone wants to come and fish the river, they'd ask you for permission, what would you say? I might be in touch, okay.
Fine, if you're happy about cricket
You'd
balls.
be very lucky to get something down there.
It's surprised how many wild trout there are, and that's
Lots of trout.
I thought most of the got boats higher up.
Have we got any other questions? No. Thank you very much. As we
Right.
said to the previous gentleman, we'll be back to you.
No, it's brilliant. Well, thanks so much for considering it.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Michael, best one is further up, I think, in the middle, they come out of a dam further up.
Yes.
Then you
Shall I
you
send
put the
someone in?
menu
Or?
options that
I
come.
think Jen's,
I think Jen has, she may be
snaffled somebody.
commanding somebody from the lift.
Right.
Thank you.
All the best. See you.
Thank you.
That's where biggest job.
Size under,
It
come down on
should
both
be
sides,
Underbank
but-
Rangers.
The oldest rugby league football club in the
So
world.
they say.
I think it is.
No, it's true.
Is there
I think it is.
any possibility, you know, that the youth budget, the 8,000?
That's
Yeah.
It's a lot more than, I mean, it's not just for children,
It's not.
it's not
No,
just for
children.
children.
but they do a massive
Which one's that?
amount
The
of
rugby club?
work with
Yeah.
young people.
I was thinking for the,
Anybody else there?
I was thinking for the youth
We're ready.
trainer band.
Yeah.
16
So-
trainer
We can
band.
have another couple.
So I'll
Yeah,
bring
that's what I
Underbarrow
thought.
Rangers, Rob Watson, and Home First Tech, Simon Turner up next.
Yeah, which
Is that-
application for home for, well, it doesn't matter.
Well, why don't we do Hepworth preschool, get the cask stuff out of the way and
Yes.
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 Yeah.
So Councillor Dixon can talk on behalf of the preschool. I do have a brief report from them as well, because
Yeah.
she can't.
We can do that bunch.
Give
Well,
that,
that means one person is waiting while we have a lengthy discussion about.
well, give that report, and
If
I'll.
there's only one other person, let's hear them.
Okay.
Underbarrow Rangers then?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll leave them, I've got a couple of written reports, so I'll just
Yeah.
leave them and we'll just do them.
It seems a shame for that person
No,
to
you're
hang
right,
around
you're
for,
right,
I
you're
mean,
right.
we could chat for half an hour on it.
You're right,
It
yeah.
could end up if we disagree, or we're trying to
It just
do
feels like, it
things.
just feels like we're gonna be here for 3 hours, doesn't it?
Yep. At least.
Like the good old days when we were there, like. I'm running around with the elephant, you
Oh,
have
yeah.
time before.
Good evening, thank you for coming.
Aye.
Thank you for putting this application in. Would you like to just briefly, we've read your application.
Yeah.
If you want to draw our attention to the most important things, or the thing, the things you
Right,
you
okay,
think would be particularly.
yeah, well basically we're back there just, sorry.
Do you want,
Yes.
would you like to make them aware of the
Yes.
list and the
There
budget?
is one thing you should know. The maximum grants we give are £5,000 to
Right.
this committee, and your application is for 10,560. So at the moment, we couldn't even give you the whole amount for the drive and the entranceway, but we could, if we agreed, give you the money for the lighting.
Yeah, right.
As Councillor Hogley pointed out about one of the previous applications, the next financial year
Yeah.
is only April.
Yeah.
And new applications can be made then. I'm not saying you get it, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But bear that in mind. So, given that, we can give you a maximum of 5/7 of the drive.
Yeah.
and we might not give you the maximum, but we might.
Yeah.
Or we could give you all of the lighting and the floodlights. Which do you think you want to ask us for?
It'd probably be the drive,
The drive.
because the drive is a bit of a safety issue as well.
Right.
So whatever we could do, even if we just did the bottom section of the drive for now, it'd just make it a lot safer for people coming up and down.
Right.
Because I don't know if you've seen it, but it is like a stone track that goes up towards the rugby club. And when cars come round off of the road, they tend to wheel spin, especially if it's wet,
Right.
which causes divots. The lighting ain't great on there, so when if people are walking down on a night, there's a bit of an health hazard really.
Okay.
So we'd probably go for that.
Does anybody have any questions? You do, Councillor.
Yeah, I'm just interested. A couple of years ago, I remember attending a meeting with someone from your club and also from a nearby football club, I think. And there were discussions about the fact that you were outgrowing the size of your area, because it's a very constrained site where you are.
Yeah.
And there was discussion about potentially seeking a new home for Underbank Rangers. And I just wondered if that's something that's disappeared because there's no prospect of finding anything, or if there's still a long-term aspiration to move.
Eventually there will be a long-term aspiration, but at the moment there's nothing available anyway. We've got to make good and make safe what we've got. The clubhouse is very, very tight. Any aspirations that we've got are moving are a long way down the line.
Because I know my understanding was you were constrained on what leagues you could even compete in because of the expectation of the fencing, lighting, distance, safety things.
We have had to drop out of the league that we were in, and partly that was due to the facilities, because the facilities weren't standard basically.
Is that league that you dropped out the Winter League or the Summer League?
The Summer League, the National Conference.
So you're not in that no longer?
No. We are going to carry on playing in summer, but it's at a lower league. It's the Yorkshire Men's League.
Because when you were in that league, I think you'd have some semi-professional players, would you know?
Yeah. The calibre of players were a lot higher.
And were they paid?
No.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you. We'll get back to you almost certainly tomorrow.
Right.
And thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we've got a load to discuss.
No, that's fine.
All in one go. Thank you very much.
Cheers, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yes.
Right, so I'll read out what Natalie from basically the email that I sent her inviting her tonight ended up in her junk email box, so she missed it until.
Which one are you talking
Sorry,
about?
Chair, don't we want the tech person?
Do we want the other person who's hanging around?
You've got Home for Tech, Festival of Folk in Hatworth Community Centre.
Oh, we've got three?
Waiting.
Right, yeah, we better have all the public and come back to the.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Good, I mean, we can easily come back.
Yeah, sure.
You could bring two of them on.
Yep.
So tech and then festival. Is Festival of Folk there? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, tech and Festival of Folk.
Well, we're certainly very successful in reaching out for grant applications,
Mm.
which is a good thing.
And what is really sad is there is not a single one for Homley. I am so disappointed. Not a single one.
A point to
But
make
the
about.
point I was making to them, I was asking, none of these companies are VAT registered, and we are. If the bills were sent to us, pay for the work.
But we can sort that out afterwards.
Yeah.
We need to agree the principle. Hello.
Bye.
Hi. So, shall we have Comfort Tech first?
Yeah, that's me.
That's you.
It should have been Chris, but
Are you yoga or kitchen?
Kitchen.
I think that's a compliment. I'm not overly
We've got
sure.
two from Comfort Tech. One's for yoga and one's for kitchen.
Kitchen, definitely.
Thank you. Would you like to briefly tell us, we've read your application
Yes.
and we know what you're asking for. Would you, and I think I'm right in saying we can't, you are asking for the amount we're allowed to give you.
Yes.
And
Well, just one point. It all depends on whether the money would come from earmark reserve or from a budget line. If it comes from an earmark reserve, it would mean that we recommend it to council. because they can authorise that.
Right.
Cranfield Tech does have their own earmark reserve of £5,000.
Right. Well, that
That would
seems,
seem to be the logical.
that seems to be a solution. Yes, so we would like mainly to use this time for questions and answers to you. But if you briefly draw our attention to the most salient points, thank you.
That's
That would be great.
I'll stand. I think you should stand in these situations. So hi, I'm Simon, which will be Chris, but you've got me instead. So Tech at the moment, we're currently actually running a loss of £2,000 a month, which is actually going up to the gas bill that we've got as well. And we're just trying to generate and get people into the building. As you know, we rent out rooms for activities, but there's also office space in there as well. So we're trying to get people in. One of the main issues that we have though is the lack of, well, kitchen. We literally have a microwave and a kettle at the moment. So to try and get anyone in from popping down to make their own sandwich through to what our bigger vision is very hard. Even the youth cafe, we can't cook pizzas for the kids, or the kids can't cook pizzas, so that's a big one. At the moment, I'd say we can just cater for a tea and coffee. We've been approached by a few people about opening a sort of a community learning kitchen to get people in to teach how to cook on a budget effectively, which is affecting everyone at the moment. And we wanted to expand things from there, so that's one of the options that we have. Pop-up cafes, pop-up restaurants. But until we get that done, we're sort of loggerheads between people who want to take the space on, but there aren't any facilities. And we appreciate the toilets, thank you very much, with the help that we have there. We're on with that.
Now that they can you want to get liquid into them?
Absolutely, yeah. Let's charge them a penny. Yes. So in a nutshell, that's effectively what we're after. And it would be white goods, if you want to call it white goods. We've had Nisbets in to give us a quote, and it's effectively 4 pieces of commercial grade furniture, not restaurants, kitchen furniture, white goods. I've got nervous there. What's my word? So that is what we're trying to do. We don't want to open a fancy restaurant; it won't work. But we don't want just a microwave and a kettle. We want somewhere in the middle that we can get the community in to use, but we can also use internally to get people into the building, long-term rental.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
Just a quick question, because I know there's a list of items. You give five different items that are asked for, each with a price tag.
Yeah.
And we tend to want to specify what we, not the model, but the things that we're funding towards.
Yeah.
And I'm conscious that the induction hob says it costs between £1,800 and £9,000. Clearly there must be quite a big difference between the types of induction hob you get for those two prices.
Yeah.
So I've got no sense of whether you're really looking for something in the middle, or if we gave you, say, the lower end, you would actually be able to buy an induction hob.
Yeah, we will be able to. Of the pieces we have, it's basically a fridge, a dishwasher, a water boiler, an induction hob, and a combi oven.
Yeah.
You can obviously get a Ford or a Ferrari version of everything.
Yeah.
So we've sort of plumped for middle of the road. That's what we've gone for. But you're right, with the induction hob and even the combi oven, we could spend tens of thousands of pounds.
But you think you can get all 4 for the 5,000?
Yeah, we would obviously still be putting in. There's about £20,000 in building costs to go ahead as well. Yeah, so all in we're thinking about 29. Hopefully would be in.
You made a point there. You're buying more machines. One of those machines you could do without. We used to have a dishwasher. It doesn't work now.
Right.
So I leave my dishwasher at home and come on my own to these meetings. Could it not be that certain people that are using it for doing the sandwiches and doing their own little bits and pieces could be seen to do their own washing up?
I don't think it.
I'm thinking on a small scale. You talked about putting a kitchen in to attract people there, so they can go down and use the microwave and whatever to make dinners and things.
And if you want volunteers to help, you don't make them wash up when everybody these days has a dishwasher.
So then we're fighting over who has the space in the dishwasher, because everybody will want to use the same one.
I don't think it's for us to determine exactly which bits of equipment. Councillor
I think
Paulson,
we're encouraging something that we could avoid.
I mean, you clarified my point, so I really don't need to wax on it, but the overall budget is, if we go the lower end of 29,000, and you want 5,000 from us, so just over a sixth
Yes.
of the budget, yeah.
Thank you. But if you would like to give us more,
We
it's worth a try.
however much we might like to, we're not allowed
I
to.
think you've
You'd
had
have
plenty
to
already.
You'd have to make another application in another financial year, which
That's fine.
is April. If there are no further questions, thank you for coming. We will let you know probably tomorrow,
Wonderful.
and we'll discuss it all when you've gone. And thank you for coming in and making your case.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Have a good evening, everyone. Good luck.
I've lost track.
Festival of Folk.
Festival of Folk.
Ross.
Yeah.
Thank you. You've heard what I have to, we've read the application,
Right.
so it's kind of draw our attention to the important bits.
Well, I've been here before.
A time or two.
Yeah.
So often.
2019 was the last time I was here. And you awarded £1,000 then, thank you very much. Which we said we'd allocate to the road closure for the event in 2020. Was going no, that event couldn't go ahead. And even in May 21 it couldn't go ahead. But we did have a dance day, as we called it, in October, and we closed Holligate for that, and we used the cash on the closure of Holligate, essentially. So that's why in the intervening 2 years we didn't think it was right to apply for any further funding, because we hadn't spent the money that you awarded us last time. So we thought that was a fair and right thing to do. We're hoping, as everyone is, that 2022 is more of a return to normality. If that's the case, we hope to put on a full festival for the first time in 3 years. And that have been acts on in the Civic, paid for by the attendees. Street dancing, kids entertainment, and the family Cayley. They're all the normal makeup. Possibly some bands in pubs, but we're thinking this year there'd be more folky bands, not the rock pop type of bands that we've had in the past. And hopefully back to having a good community family event that everybody can come into town and enjoy. And that's the whole purpose of it, really. So there's not much to say beyond that. I think you're all familiar with what the festival entails and what it does for the town, and we're just hoping it can continue. Yeah.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? No. Oh, Councillor Foxon.
Just so the project, the Festival of Folk is projected to cost £18,000. Right?
I mean, that's based on
Previous
years when we had
Yeah.
a full itinerary of events.
And pay, what is it? You look for a grant for 1,000, so 180. And so the venues that you actually book, so like the Civic Hall and anywhere else, you pay the market rates for those venues, and you underwrite the gigs.
It's pretty much the Civic Hall, and if the pubs want to take part, and
yeah, that's the business arrangement between them. But for the Civic Hall, you pay the market rate.
Thank you.
well, it's down for negotiation.
Yes, but but it's a business transaction.
Yeah, it's a business transaction, yeah. So
Yeah,
we'll
that's
try and
right.
obviously try and get the best deal we
Yeah,
can
that's
get.
fine.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you for making your case. We'll let you know probably tomorrow.
Thank you.
How much, whatever. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ross.
Sorry,
There's another-
Roger, you've got Clive first that I need to bring up before you. Okay, so I'll go and get Clive.
Okay,
Thank you, Terry.
bye.
5 years we've had one community singers.
Oh, Sam, let's know what he does when he play his drums. I am a drummer.
Hello.
Good afternoon, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Where do you want me?
You don't need to, you can stop them if you wish to, but you don't need
Clive,
to.
have you got, has your eyesight failed you?
No, I've got my glasses.
Well, you said gentlemen, I was just getting worried.
We're here, we would like to use this question mainly with all our members of the public for questions and answers, but do feel free very briefly to draw, we've read your application.
Right, fine.
If you draw our attention to any particularly important bits that you
Well,
feel we need to
okay.
be aware
A
of.
brief history of the pot so far is that we started in March 2019 with 16 people turning up from the church for what was going to be Help with Community Singers. We were under the governance, if you like, of the church at that particular time. Since then, we have become our own entity. We have our own rules. We have our own way that we work, and that's various officers that look after children and all that kind of stuff. But we don't have any children in the choir at the moment. But so now we've become our own entity. And we pay for the room in the church, and we pay for the heating, we pay for the music, and we buy our own things. It's helped us stop going to the church and asking cap in hand really for music to buy and things like that. So we are our own entity. We're doing very well. We built it up from 16 to about 36. We only do about 4 concerts a year because not everyone wants to do concerts. It's a fun thing. We've got a 70-year-old piano player and another 70-year-old conductor. Not that I'm ages, but they're like engine bracket, you know, it's great. We have a lot of fun.
She's 70-ish, yeah.
Christine Lockwood, I don't know.
Oh, sorry.
Anyway,
You got wrong, I've got the wrong one.
and the thing is, yeah, and a lot of people have missed this throughout lockdown. It's been a long time for a lot of people, but the people that we tend to have are quite are 60-year-old and older, you know what I mean? Some of them vulnerable, if you like. We've got 1 or 2 disabled as well. And you know, singing your head off in a church for an hour is absolutely fantastic for the endorphins and for the well-being and all that kind of stuff. We have a piano, which is the church's piano, which is a metal-framed, big old-fashioned piano that we have to wheel out and then wheel it away again. And that's caused a few problems and injuries. And what we'd like to do is obviously purchase this instrument to be a little bit more flexible, so we can. It came to a head. In fact, I brought a CD for you. You can pass it round if you want. Of our last concert at Epworth Village Hall, which was the week before lockdown, and it was successful. At that concert, we raised £266. That money was given to Epworth Brass Band because at that particular time they just qualified to go to the grand finals at the Royal Albert Hall in London and needed a lot of money. So it's our intention to the group to do this and to raise money for the church, for the band, for the community centre, or for the school or whatever else.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Mr. Councillor Pogson.
Yes, so the sort of like the aim or the whole sort of mantra for the singers is basically for everybody who attends their own benefit. It's not something you're going to play concerts on a regular basis and charge for. It's basically people come along and sing for the pure enjoyment of singing.
Absolutely correct. If you don't have a laugh, don't come. No? And the thing is, we do the 4 concerts we do because not everybody takes part in them, unless they want to do. It's because some people like something to aim for, you know?
Yeah, but just before they, no, that's fine.
That's fine, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much for coming.
Just one thing I would like to say. Clive, is this anything to do with the demise of geriatrics that brings the old people needing to have some recreation?
Absolutely, no. I don't nothing to do. Although Stephen Pollitt just come to the choir now.
I know you did accompany them at various occasions, I know.
I know.
So I was just wondering whether it was to encourage the local entertainment that they provided for many years.
No. Take it if you want. You can have it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My God, free of charge.
We'll play it on Rich's computer while
We
we're
will.
making our deliberations. Thank you very much.
No
We will
problem.
let you know hopefully tomorrow.
I look forward to hearing your
Thank you for
views. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I didn't know that Clive was coming to represent those people, and his wife was involved. Clive has done some financial work for me and my family.
Okay.
Noted.
Yeah, okay.
Right, you heard my preamble to everybody else, so I'll repeat it to you. You are which application?
So Roger's in the two applications, both from Home for Earth Art and Music.
All right,
The first
yeah.
one is for the children's parade. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yeah, a section in the parade done by the Children's Arts School. I mean, the brief thing that I would like to say is that it was great to get back live this year and actually to do events with people. It's led us to a lot of new thinking about how we might work and to change in two main ways. One is that we want to extend the programme from March to October and not just condense it into one weekend and a very substantial programme of community engagement that we do undertake, which takes several weeks. We want to extend the events from March to October, and we want to extend through the Home Valley, outside of Home Firth, and to use other venues throughout the valley for that extension. So those are the main changes that we're seeking next year. There will still be the festival weekend in June, and this application is related to one of the highlights of that weekend, which is the parade, which is done. People don't realise the amount of work that goes into it. It takes about 2 months to put that parade together, with 15 different community groups being involved. One section of it is with the Children's Art School, and we want to work with them to develop that section for this year. Our theme is the earth beneath our feet, and we're taking quarries and reservoirs as our specific inspiration for that in our look at the landscape and our desire to highlight environmental issues and climate change issues throughout the festival. We are an outdoor festival, even though we do indoor events, and that will continue to be our emphasis next year. That's all I'll say on this one. Then there's the training one.
Thank you. Do we have any questions on that? No.
Okay.
So do you want to do the next one?
Silence is consent.
Put your other hat on.
Well, the other hat, in a way it's the same hat, but it's on behalf of 4 festivals this time. Because one of the things that happened this year, in a way by accident, was we shared the art shop with the art shop people from Art Week, which led to a lot of conversations between us. And one thing that emerged this year, and came from our supporters, we've got about 25 to 40 supporters that help with the festival, was a request for specific training in different areas that the festivals had felt a need for. And when I had a word with Stephen and Alex and the Art Week people, Mick Kirby-Geddes, we realised that it was sensible for us to do some joint training of our mutual volunteers and supporters, some of which are involved with several festivals. And the supporters themselves have identified the 4 areas of the first aid, the access and inclusion, safeguarding and stewarding. What we would like to do, and it is dependent on this grant, is that we will bring volunteers and supporters from each of those festivals into training sessions on those subjects in time for next year's festival. And this is a new development, but I hope it's the first stage in more joint festival collaboration, which we're very interested in.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Dix.
What training do you need, and where do you get it from?
Well, the 4 areas of training, as I say, that are first aid, which will result in a first aid certificate. All the festivals realise that they need people that have got first aid training, and people move on or drop out, and we need people with that certification. Safeguarding is becoming increasingly important, and every organisations are required to have safeguarding policies and to know how to implement them. And that was something that was identified by all of the festivals. We have a particular interest in developing access and inclusion by the way in which we use our website, by the way in which we provide information, by the way in which we organise our events. And we had an inclusion report done on this year's festival, which highlighted all the areas where we can improve on, and we want to share some of those thoughts. And then with stewarding, there is a lot of, if you like, legal and safety issues if you work in the streets. That applies particularly to us and the folk festival. And the stewards were wanting greater confidence in how they handled general public and stewarding issues. Because we can have up to 2,000 people on the streets of Holmford.
Where do you get your training from? The question I asked was, where do you get who's going to do the training and where do you get it from?
Well, we've identified each of the people for the different sessions. Fortunately, we're not asking for the money towards safeguarding because that Kirklees provide a course in that, which we will be taking advantage of. The first aid training is from a certified first aid trainer that's able to give the certification for people that attend it. Access and inclusion training is being done by Totally Inclusive People, which is a specialist organisation that works in this area and did the inclusion report for this year's festival and highlighted all the areas where we're currently weak. And the final one on stewarding is being done by Alison Povey, who was the senior events officer at Kirklees for many years, has been the festival manager with us, is a tour manager for Cape Rosby, is one of the most experienced people working at outdoor festivals and happens to be local, so use her. And other people have said they'd be very happy to have more training from Alison.
Right.
So that's what we're looking to.
Any other questions? Councillor Fox.
So just to sort of clarify this in my own head, you're proposing to provide training for people who work on the various festivals in and around Holmford.
Yes.
And looking for us for first aid training, access and inclusion training,
Stewarding.
the stewarding. I'm not asking for us from stewarding. Actually, room hire, the project, project management. So those items and what have you. If you were to train your own people to do that, and you were going to run the festival, would you have to purchase people to provide that service?
What,
If you
during the
didn't, if you
festival?
didn't have your own people qualified to do that, would you have to sort of like pay people to carry out that function?
Yes and no. We wouldn't have to get as many people. For something like the Arts Festival, we actually engage a professional security firm and street management, because the risk assessment is really quite significant now. So we would still have to do that, but we would have more experienced volunteers doing the work on the streets, which would undoubtedly help. So we would be able to employ fewer people, but we would still have to employ some professionals.
Yeah. So the extent of what you're going to have to pay for professionals to come in would be less if you train up your students to a certain standard.
It would be, and differentially for some of the different festivals. I think the Arts Festival has more of a professional element than any of the other festivals that tends to be very voluntary. So they wouldn't have the same professional costs that we have.
So what I'm getting is the cost benefit
There is
actually training
is
your
a
own
cost
people to
benefit.
do this rather than going and buying it off the shelf from a
Yes, there is. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Okay.
We'll get back to you, as I
Thank
say, probably tomorrow, if we
Lovely.
possibly can.
That's great. It's great to hear so quickly.
Thank you very much. Bye.
So we have Deb Wiles from Friends of Cliff Rec and Michelle Martin Joseph from Park waiting.
Cliff Rec and you.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Should we bring them both in?
Yeah, you can do. Hi Charles.
Hello.
Hi, Charles.
we're quite a long way through the grant, you'll be pleased to know, but we haven't had the discussion. So
We haven't got,
despite my asking people to keep it down to
we haven't
two
got,
sentences,
we haven't got it down our way.
Yeah, quite. Well, I've asked that already.
Okay, thank you for coming. Which of you is Cliff Wreck? Me? You are. We've read your application and we're asking people to keep their presentation as brief as they can. So if you could just draw our attention to particular things that we really need to know, because we have read it. And then we'll ask you questions as they arise.
Okay.
Thank you.
Alright, I'm Deborah Wells and I'm representing Friends Cliff Wreck, and we're asking for £525 to run an event next June, mainly the lighting of the beacon to celebrate Queen's 70th anniversary on the throne, her Platinum Jubilee. We've done this before. We lit it the first time 10 years previously for her Diamond Jubilee. And we attract more and more people to come up to the event, because that's what it's about, to attract people to come along. We want about 50% of the money will cover the entertainment value, the band, music. The suggestion this year, because this is a chain of beacons we're joining in with, is that we have a bagpiper, special music being composed, and also the other 50% for health and safety functions, really, barriers to stop you getting too close to the fire, first aid, and stewarding, and a toilet. Now, we would like you to all come along, and especially if you wear a makeshift coronet. And that's it, really.
Thank you very much indeed. Does anybody have any questions?
No, I lost me at bagpipes.
I think Viper's cheap. I didn't think anybody would work for 50 quid these days, or come out and do it.
He's an amateur, but he's kindly agreed to do it, and he's coming all the way from Slathwaite.
I was just thinking that look, but then I saw a toilet hire at £100 and I thought, my God.
Paying twice as much for the loo as the musician.
Yeah, that also comes from Slathwaite.
Thank you very much. There don't seem to be any particular questions.
What fencing do you need? Do you need to put barriers up to keep the locals out?
Out of the way of the fire.
There's the fire. You could spray about 55 of those steel barriers, because actually you don't know which way the wind's going to blow and sparks do fly. So we take that really seriously.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you for coming in. We'll let you know as soon as we can, probably tomorrow.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
It's a hell of a lot of them. Can we say we'll let you know this week? Just with the burden on our side.
Yes, it is. Yes, we're running out of
Put some pressure on Richard to get to know these people and can help.
Thank you. Would you like to draw our attention briefly? Now, you should know that we the maximum grant we can give is £5,000. So it obviously wouldn't be for the 20 weeks.
Right, just
time.
a 10 week.
But that's this financial
This
year.
is an event though, it's not an asset. This is an event, so it's got a maximum
Of 1,000. Ah,
1,000.
right. Maximum of 1,000. So, looking at your shopping list, what would be your priorities? You don't have to add it up. If you want help, you don't have to do mental arithmetic. I mean, it looks as though we could pay for the teaching, for instance, but you'd have to find the funds for the rest. Or we could pay for the equipment, venue and marketing, but you'd have to find the money for the teaching. Looks like the natural break. Which do you think is the more urgent for you?
Probably to cover the teaching, if I'm honest.
Teaching, probably. Okay.
And then we'd have to have a look and
If
see what
one-
else we could do.
If one was available, could the others be funded from other sources
Hang
to
on.
make it practical?
We'd like to make a presentation. I just wanted
Sorry.
to draw our attention to the budget.
Sorry.
Do you want to just quickly?
Yeah, if that's alright. So my name is Michelle Bland, my business is Home Health Wellness.
So I'm hoping that you've all managed to have a look at my website and have a look at what I can offer for the community. I'm really passionate about what I do. My specialisms are working with long-term health conditions, disabilities. I work with Square Peg, I work with Headways, I do a lot of stuff with Kirklees College. I'm working with Dr. Shamsi and the GP surgeries going in and doing mindfulness and yoga for their staff. So my passion is to obviously make a difference to people's health within the valleys. So the project really, the Yoga for Health, I've never managed to get it off the ground because COVID hit just as I'd done my training. So we've been desperately trying to obviously get it off the ground. It's a fab project because it's a 10-week project. It's got a lot of evaluation. It's not something I've just plucked out of the air. It has been evaluated by Westminster University. It's approved by the NHS. And I just want to give it a go really. It runs in terms of a 10-week programme. It covers coherent breathing, which is really good for long-term COVIDs, people with long-term COVID or anxiety and depression. We do the yoga postures, but it doesn't have to be the jargon of the yoga. It's kind of the benefits of yoga rather than bringing in the Sanskrit names and the religious aspects of yoga. So they've taken that out, and there's a chair-based option and a chair-based and a floor option, in with it as well, so it's quite inclusive. And I've got things to evaluate the impact at the beginning and the end. I've got all the tools to run it really.
Right.
So I just think it's just a shame that we can't get it off the ground because the research has really proven that it's been really beneficial to reduce anxiety in patients and depression. You know, and there's a social aspect incorporated with it as well, and it's also preventative. So that's me just staking my claim. We wanted to run 2 10-week courses because to give it a good chance, and also I am conscious that it's only 10 weeks, so where do people go after that? I mean, I used to run the PALS exercise scheme. I was the manager there for 20 years. So we need to keep people moving afterwards, so it's no good we just doing a 10-week block and then throwing them out to the wolves.
Well, as I say, we can only pay for the teaching for one of them, so, you know, we can't answer those questions.
It's just a start, and we're working quite closely with Jen Strickland as well, with the social prescribing.
I will ask, I've got a question as well. Can I just look at my question is why aren't Kirklees paying for this?
I think, to be honest, Claire Baldwin is it? I approached Claire, and I've been working quite closely with Claire, and she obviously saw your grants and thought it was a good idea for us to put the funding bid in. So we haven't tried that yet. We've just come to you guys,
right? Because
I'm working quite closely with the technical college as well. We're working as a partnership, really.
Thank you. Councillor
Yeah, so I suppose I had a similar question to Councillor Colling, which is just if it's about social prescribing, I don't really know quite how it works, but I thought the initiative behind that was that, you know, there's cost associated with prescriptions to give you medicines, so there must be a cost associated with prescribing someone a course, which is what this caused. And I think it's brilliant that there are things like that. But I'm conscious as a parish council, we have to make sure that the beneficiaries, if you like, are people from within the home valley. So whilst the venue is the tech, what I'm not quite sure about is if people are self-referring themselves to this course, or whether it is actually via doctors, say for example, who
well, I'd love it to be by the doctors. If I can get, maybe if it was funded, then I'm sure Dr. Shams has been really supportive in, I'm coming into the surgeries to deal with his staff now, and I'm doing the Slough branch as well, and you know, he's wanting to come in to do some stuff with the dementia clients that he's got coming in as well. So he's trying to use me. I think it's just trying to get things off the ground really. So initially, obviously we wanted to run it around here and for it to be self-referral really. It was just we're looking at how we could work in partnership with the technical college and obviously the social prescribers and Jen Strickland really, and our other partners. We're just trying to look at how we can, so if you've got any options to point us in different directions, I'm sure we'd like to go down that and see if we can get a collaboration.
I have to say, I understand that the government is withdrawing the funding for prescribing exercise.
I wasn't sure of that because according to my figures, this course is accredited by the Personalised Care Institute, which is about personalised care plans and working with individuals, for the best of their health.
But what I'm saying is they're withdrawing the funding from GPs.
Oh right, yeah, well maybe that's the issue. I don't know, you're the first people that I've come to, obviously because Claire has got the contact and she's It's
Yeah.
just kind of put the bid in and they're desperately trying to get it going. They're trying to try it out, which is so difficult.
Give it a whirl, yeah. Councillor Macker.
I just want to ask a question about the venue hire, because I noticed because this application has come in from on the 10th.
Yes.
And I just noticed an element in there, isn't it, for venue hire? So where are the venues being hired?
It will be run there. They put the venue hire on because I suppose they've got to generate some income. I don't really know how that fits.
Yeah, but the application is from them, not from you.
Yes, it's had to go through them because I'm not allowed to.
But they can't ask for money to hire themselves.
Oh right. I don't know. I've never done a funding before, so I'm just. I'm sorry.
I mean, we can. That's something that can be ironed out. Councillor,
I just wondered what your relationship is with the tech. I mean, you would be the deliverer
Yes.
of the programme. Is that?
Yes.
That's the only.
Yeah.
That would be your relationship.
Councillor,
That's more or less sorted, possibly one. Do the individual people that go to these events, do they have to put a payment in?
Well, I don't think so at the minute. I wasn't sure, but obviously, we could.
Would it not be prudent if you're doing something like this to charge them so much per
Well, I
session?
definitely think
like,
so.
Like
Yeah.
other people will do it other places. And the other question I was going to ask is, who was doing the teaching?
Me.
That's where that
and
gives,
she's
that,
told us her qualifications.
yeah, but that gives me a problem. That if you're going to be the one doing the teaching and you're doing the one that's applying for the grant, can we pay wages?
Yeah, we've discussed this and we can under these sort of circumstances.
Well, I don't know.
We've had this discussion, you've raised it before, Paul, and it's okay.
I want to be safe. I don't want to build this lady's idea up and then.
Yeah, no. It's like I say, I've just come in with no expectations. I'm just coming in to say that I want to, passionate about.
Well, it's a bit of a first for us. So we'll have a discussion when you've gone, as we will with all the other applications, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Certainly this week.
Yeah.
And
no worries.
and we will try to give you reasons and guidance about where else, also, this could happen and that could happen and this could connect with that.
No, that's
where
right.
we can.
And I think in answer to Paul's question, yes, I agree with you. I mean, initially I was saying that if they paid £10 a session, because they're getting 2 hours for £10, and then we could offer some free places for people that couldn't afford to come.
Yeah.
So that was the theory behind it. Because I've been trying to get it off the ground myself to cover my costs, so without even having to come and ask for any funding. But it's just so difficult to get it off the ground, kind of need someone to be helping you to refer people into me.
It's good the doctors are working with you and they're prepared to recommend people to you, but it's not fair on those people if they can't afford to.
Well, exactly. Exactly. So
it's their problem that their health suffered because of whatever, and they haven't been in work or whatever, and they haven't the funds.
Okay, are there any other questions? Thank you for coming in.
Oh, thank you for seeing me. I don't know, did you need any?
Soon.
Don't you need any more information, or have you got everything you
I
need?
think we've got everything in there.
I think we've got all we want.
Let us know when you can take 10 counsellors.
Yes.
Well, you could be my pilot, couldn't you? Pilot on you guys.
Well, I'm sure there'll be 10 of us that will need some help.
Well, I think everybody does these days. I think we all need to.
Mobility, double wall.
The only other person is Robert Turnbull from the
Thank you very much.
the other two
How many more have we got waiting?
One, 12.
And it's Hayden.
If he's here,
Yeah.
This is for the forms and the uniforms.
So this is for the youth band, is it?
Yeah.
If we put money in the youth budget, this would tick the boxes because it's for a trainer band for the 16th, isn't it? So I think how we do it direct into the...
Can we do it though? That's the thing.
It's not our budget.
It's not our budget. We can refer it.
Let's hear this and then we can...
No, we can't make a decision after that, but we can refer them to that. Is there money in that budget?
Well, yeah, of course, yeah, there is. Nothing's gone from that budget. And we can give more money from that budget than you can from this budget.
Yes,
So,
which is needed if the whole lot is to be paid. No?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello, thank you.
Hello.
we're asking people, we've read your application,
Thank you.
we're asking people to give us a very brief,
Yes, okay.
you'll be the first person who has done that. Draw our attention to the key points,
Okay.
and then we will have a discussion after you've gone and get back to you as soon as we can. But we'll ask you questions as they arise, if that's all right.
Yes.
So do carry on.
Right, well, I'm from Head Edge Band, which hopefully most of you know where we exist and what we have up at Head Edge in terms of a band room and obviously a senior band. What happened in COVID, we lost very much of our players from the trainer band, which was our plan to grow that since we lost the junior groups when it was alive. So following COVID, we decided to do a relaunch, and our new MD, James Smith, put a programme together going into a number of primary schools. We went into about 4 or 5 to start with, and the result of that, so far we've had 20 plus children, aged 6 upwards, come to our rehearsal on the Thursday night, including some adults as well who would like to learn. So the age range is not limited to youngsters, it's wide open, not virtually 6 to 80, I would say is a good range. Because we've been very successful, we've still got some more schools to go into. We see that number very quickly growing up to 40, and as a relaunch we want to keep the momentum going, and we want to provide them with some uniforms so they have their own identity and their own logo, so they can get out there and hopefully show the rally what we've got in terms of presentation of a dead band, not just the senior band, but hopefully a B band and then the trainer band moving all up. So the plan is people of trainer band will get experience to go to B band and eventually go to senior band. And our experience of senior band players has gone all over the world from Head Edge, so we've got quite a good reputation for very successful players moving on to other things. So the relaunch of the junior trainer band is what we're in for, and trying to get them to have an identity of some kind of uniform.
Thank you. And just if we were having a discussion when you came in, and we'll continue it after you've gone. If we award the grant from this committee,
yes,
the maximum we can give you is £1,000, not the full 15,000.
Okay.
If we decide there may be another subcommittee in the council from which it could be that we can give you it all. So we'll discuss it when you've gone. But I mean, the thing that struck me that you don't mention here, and it's neither negative nor positive, but you're going to need this every year, really. This isn't a one-off, because year-old second-hand hoodies are not going to really work as to show off your band, are they?
Yeah.
So you might want to think about that,
okay.
and how that would affect us and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions?
No, just ask one question about the uniform. Obviously you mentioned the trainer band has got adults and children. Is the intention that it's to effectively support the children in the cost of the uniform but not the adults, or would it be everybody?
It would be everybody. We include anybody that wants to come to train a band and wants to learn to play music will be inclusive. So obviously we would have to go for some garments for adults as well as
And do
children.
they pay a subscription to be members of that?
Well, they haven't so far. What we're planning to do, we've notified the parents that we would like to start charging a subscription from January at £20 per term. So that's 3 terms per year, and hopefully that will then pay for what we're going to have, what we are currently paying out of the senior band funds is the MD's cost, £50 a week for an MD to conduct them.
Right, Councillor.
Just so I'm laying my cards on the table on how the parish council works. Exactly. So the grants committee you've come from and what have you is, we do give some on a yearly basis, but generally they're for like seed funding. So we may give X amount of money to the Homebirth Folk Festival, and they're putting in 18 times as much money as we're doing, and they self-generate it and this kind of thing. You've come to us with the whole kind of cost for it, and as other parish councillors have said, this is, it's not seed funding because kids grow older, there's more kids and you could be coming back. in another committee of the parish council, the service provision committee, we have a youth budget.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Now, that's okay for the 1 to 16, the 0 to 16s.
Yeah.
Yeah. However, if you've got some adults coming along and what have you, I'm sure they wouldn't mind actually paying for their own instrument or their own hoodie and their own thing. So you get around it that way and just coming for people, and because it's a youth provision, we expect that it's a provision and a service provision, that's an everyday year thing that you pay for and you pay for and you pay for because it's a youth provision. My thoughts, and this is the conversation we'll be having later, is I think this sits better in a service provision as a yearly kind of thing you may be coming back for to help support a band, yeah, rather than something that's a one-off.
Yes.
And then you find yourself. That's just from reading the application and what you've been saying, and that's kind of where I am. So rather than saying no, I'm saying you may be better looking at somewhere else in the parish council where I think there is money in that budget as well.
Right.
That would be better. And plus, we can only give you £1,000.
Yeah.
There's not a cap on the youth provision budget as well.
I mean, our vision would be that hopefully like the senior band, the trainer band will get out there and start doing concerts and earning money themselves. And that would self-generate the costs that we think at the moment the Heritage Band are supporting it with. And that would be obviously through subscriptions, through doing concerts. That would hopefully pay for the MD on an annual basis and possibly new uniforms. We're very fortunate, we ring-fenced £6,000 2 years ago for instruments. And what we found in this new intake that plastic instruments are much easier for children of that age group. So we've gone out and bought a load of P cornets and P bone trombone, which have been very successful in getting them interested in actually playing notes. So we did ring fence that money from the senior band, and that money will be used for instruments for this to grow.
That's great. That's great. I think what we will do is we'll talk among ourselves, but we'll come back to you. As Councillor Pogson said, you're probably better off applying to this other committee. We'll find out their dates and all the rest and what the procedures are and what's involved for you to do that.
Okay, that's fine.
Madam Chairman, can I have
Sorry, Councillor Dix.
Basically, what you're looking and asking us for is to give you a kickstart and give you a lift. You've got provision for instruments.
Yes.
It's now to make them look like a band.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think what you're doing up there, if you can get 40 youngsters between the ages of 6 and 16, I think you're doing a fine job.
It's certainly going the right way at the moment, so we're very, very pleased with the results so far.
Don't try too high. We've enough with that within top section. If you stop it top second section, we're quite happy.
I think we can confidently say we'd like to support this in some way, shape or form, and we'll have a discussion about what's the best way to do it.
I think to answer that, I think Age is a different league to Heckle certainly. And,
a better league, because they're more approachable.
We attempt to go to the Championship, but we want to, like Premier League, we can always come back down again.
Okay, thank you very much. We will get back to you as soon as we can.
Not City.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Jen, have we got anybody else?
No, we're going to have a look. We shouldn't have, but I'll just go and have a look.
Just make sure we have no people lurking down there waiting. Right, we are overrunning already. We haven't even had it. We haven't started to discuss.
Just a question. People can sponsor people, and sort of, if Aiden's band were to get logo with sponsorship from Home Valley Parish Camp, if we did the sponsorship,
we could have our name on the uniform.
We could, but I'm not.
Like a football team.
I'm not really worried about that. What I'm concerned about is that we can get them a better deal, because if it's us that's paying for it, we can then get the VAT element. And I think if we're going to be giving all these things to people,
that's not an acceptable financial mechanism.
It is.
It's not. It's not legal.
Well, I sponsored somebody, and as far as I know, I got the VAT back on the job
It's
sponsor.
not legal.
Maybe was your private business.
The
Maybe
council cannot do that.
Well, no, but all I'm seeing is a way of giving people more money.
I would have thought there's a good chance that they will be able to raise the money for their own uniforms in a year or two.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good idea.
You see, the question is, do they need it now or do they need it for next year?
Well, they're asking for them now, so...
Again, we talk about these things, like we'll come back to it in a bit, but the Cliff Wrecking, that is next year's operation.
Can I just say, before we start the discussion, we do have enough money to give nearly everything to everybody who's asked, should we wish to. So...
Well, we are, if we're just giving it away to get rid of...
I'm just saying that is the position, Paul, just so we all know. Councillor Thompson.
A budget was set last year, the expectation that that budget would be spent.
Exactly.
You know, I think underspending is just as bad as overspending once you've set the actual budget. So I think we should actually...
So we are in the luxurious position of having nearly enough to give nearly everything to everybody who's asked, should we choose so to do. We do not have to, Paul, but we can if we wish to. That's all I'm saying. Councillor Greaves.
Do we have another grant round in February?
Yeah. Well, we've basically said that we will keep doing.
We're no longer doing rounds until COVID's over.
Yeah, we'll keep doing it this year and then hopefully start the twice a year system next.
So
next year.
I can't remember the precise amount, but you said something like there's 21,000 available tonight. Is that?
Can we come to the details afterwards?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you know, there's 21,000 in the cast budget and about 16 in the F&M events grants budgets.
So, any grants given tonight, is that going to impact upon people coming for the next 3 months then?
Yes.
If we spend it.
Yeah.
If we spend the money, it will. So, can we discuss the ones we've got?
Are you aware of other applicants?
No, other than that we tell people to come for a grant in February, and then we've invited grants, people coming now. If we do then get some people who are following our previous guidance, which was to come in February, then we might be turning around to tell them that there's no money for them, because we've already spent it.
Well, they may have to wait till April.
But if they were counting, if they want somebody to spend something in March, the time's gone.
I mean, in the F&M budget, that even if we give it all out, there will still be some left.
Yeah. We can go, we've got all the details of how much will be left, because we've got, I mean, the bit we've done, and we're overrunning, and we're still not finished, is only about a third of this meeting.
Yes.
We have got a lot to discuss, and it's things like that, and other committees and budgets. We've got this year's budget to set, I mean, this year's grants, this year's budget, all the other committees.
Let's go.
We've got three left where the people have not attended. Yeah. 2 of them have given me things to read out.
Do we need to?
Well, we don't. We've read the applications.
Yeah.
Let's just go through them and ask each other if we have questions. Okay. Which one next?
Please, thank you.
What about the Scouts? No. What about the calendar? It's a small application for Home First. They want to do a charity calendar.
So are these ones we're going to be given extra information on, or are we starting to make proposals?
Have we got any extra information on that?
We will have questions of each other now, because we don't have anybody to answer, and then we'll have a discussion. But Councillor Blacker.
Just on the Home First, the calendar thing, I think it is an extremely odd application. And it also appears to be retrospective, which is more fun retrospective applications. It just seems really strange that it's selling a calendar to make money for 2 other organisations.
Well, as Rich and I discussed this, and in effect, it's us making a charitable contribution to these 2 charities.
Yeah, I don't think it's...
So we can, when we get to the proper discussion, I mean, are there any other questions on that? Okay, trying to find them all. The Scouts. They are asking for more than we can give them for an awning for their HQ. Are there any questions on that one?
Well, Chair, I was just going to say this falls classically into the youth budget, and I would suggest we refer it to service provision.
Yes.
How much could we give the award to them?
I don't think we need to.
No,
I
but
think we can refer all of it to
if
service
we weren't referring to cross,
Well, they're asking for 1,680. The
Yeah.
maximum we could give them would be 1,000.
well, why is it they can only have 1,000 if you've got situations where you're talking about giving thousands and thousands of pounds to the
Because
dead?
it's a standing order.
Well, why do the others, why does one qualify for only the minimum and the others get the
Because
large
we've
amount?
got two kinds of applications. There's the applications that used to be CASC,
Yeah,
and they're about community assets, and
Yeah.
they can award 5,000. We didn't change that when we transferred CASC into this committee.
alright.
And there are the other ones that used to be finance,
Right,
that can
right,
only
right,
give
right,
1,000.
right,
To be
yeah,
fair, you
yeah.
could argue it's a cash.
I would argue
Yes,
we
you
all
could.
it's
Yeah,
all the
you
cash.
could say it's a CASC.
We
Yeah.
could also argue that it could go in the youth budget.
It could be used, yeah. Councillor
I'd just
Blackburn.
like to propose that we move this into the youth provision, because there's no question about this, it is just for young
Yeah.
people.
Well,
So-
I agree with you, but we can't make a decision for a different committee, this
No.
committee.
No,
All we can do is suggest that they go to that one.
Well,
Does that
no,
make
we
any
should-
sense?
When's the
Sorry,
next-
Joe, we can't just go back to them and say no, because of our administration, you have to go back and go
No.
through all the hoops again. We
No.
need to directly recommend a referral to service provision
Yes.
yeah.
with our
Yes.
recommendation that we wish to
When
support.
is the next meeting of service provision?
January.
Not
So
till
February,
January.
February.
And when's the next, is it
I need to
before
update.
or after the next full council?
Oh,
After.
After the full council.
Or we recommend it to full council to via it from service provision, at which point all members of full council, which will obviously contain service provision, will have the opportunity to give their views if they're unhappy about that environment. If there's
Yeah.
enough budget in service provision, rather than making them wait till February, we could do that.
Or, if you've enough money in our budget, we could choose to pay it and advise them, in future, is this, could you come to, you may wish to apply to youth, you know, makes it better in the youth provision budget.
But in both cases, we're giving them less than they want. I mean, in the band case and in this case.
That's the
Should,
truth.
should when receiving these applications, should we not look at them like Richard looks at them and says that should be there rather than here?
Yes, I'm sure we should.
And then we wouldn't be having to go
Yeah.
through the rounds of
And now that
making
we're
a
up
decision
to,
with somebody else.
Paul, now that we're up to full staffing and people beginning to find their feet and working out the workload, I'm sure we'll be able to organise that people are directed, as Liz was able to do. You need to go to that committee and this committee. But we've had people working on their own under difficult circumstances doing their best.
Oh, yeah.
And we are where we are.
I don't doubt that. And what I'm trying to say is that we know that these are the things we'd like to see, but we can't give them any more than.
And I'm sure both Jen and Rich will take note of the kind of youth provision things so we can weed those out in future.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the worry is that if if the wholly youth provision has not come to us this year, they've not asked for anything, and that's something that we gave a lot of money to last year, and obviously they're a rolling service, so.
Yeah.
They're coming in January.
Well, there you go, they're coming in January, so we've got
But
to be
it's a shame because I
careful
told them to come in November and I told them the deadline was November.
Well, why do we tell them? If we tell them to do it, that's giving money
It's
away.
a service provision, it's a different committee. How can you tell someone
have to
to
tell
come to
them.
your
We have
committee?
three people talking at once here.
We shouldn't have to
Councillor
tell them.
Hodgson and then Councillor Graves, who had his hand up for ages.
I'm disappointed to hear that someone from this committee is advising people to come to a different committee to hear. Youth Provision Committee is not till January. They're planning on coming to January. Why are we telling them that there's a deadline?
No, I told them to come to here because I'd forgotten about youth provision, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, because the service provision is where they came, what have you.
Yeah.
So,
And before, given that we set the budget, that was why I said this one, because we will take a full budget recommendation to full council, won't we? Council Graves.
So we want to cover a bit of ground here. The reason that the Homely Youth Club will be coming rather than Homely Youth is because Homely Youth was supposed to be the umbrella group, but they've decided that they're not going to give the actual functioning youth club any funding. So there's some issue between the two groups. What I've suggested to them is, well, it appears to be who calls the shots So what I've suggested to the actual youth club people is to come to the parish council and put forward a funding request and just explain, just leave out the argy-bargy, just to say what it is that you want to do and request the funding directly. Everything that's been come forward tonight has got its merits, but there is a danger, and you just need to think about this, I think, in terms of where this would end up. So, let's take the band. Buying tops and putting names on it. Well, there's hundreds of football clubs and rugby clubs, and you know, you could open up quite a door there. Wages, paying wages for people in the past has always been an issue. When you get somebody who's getting paid 50 quid to pipe for the night, that's not too bad. When you've got somebody who's on £45 an hour, it's somewhat questionable.
It might be better if we do this when we go through this in detail, which we're about to.
But there's also other ones where in the past, as a sign of almost commitment, we also, as well as having an amount, a cash amount, we also had a percentage as well. So it was almost along the lines of the parish would go up to, I think it was 40%. I was pushed for higher. I think 50% is the right number. But that also then means, rather than just dreaming up a scheme and trying to get the parish to pay for it, you actually have to think about the merits of it and how you are going to fund it. So there's a little bit of a floodgates concern with some of this. We've said to send a lot of people to youth provision, but some of these are a bit peripheral in terms of. I suppose it depends how much is in youth provision now and how that's seen by service provision. But in the past, that youth provision was always in terms of youth work and youth clubs, not organised club activities. So there's a real danger that what is quite a modest targeted budget within another committee might end up getting overwhelmed with maybe slightly not inappropriate, but I think we should look to address what we can tonight and perhaps not worry that we might fall a bit short, but do what we can, and perhaps it might be a case of, if we feel merited to it, to maybe refer it on to the committee to ask if they want to top it up. But let's try and do as much as we can tonight.
Yeah. Okay, shall we go through them one at a time now? Councillor, sorry.
Sorry, I think there's a lot of work needs doing on the grant system. Tonight is not the night to do it.
No.
I think we need to meet and I think it's good that the floodgates have opened.
Yeah.
It's good we've got applications for new grades.
I'm not sure we've ever had a year where we've actually spent the budget since I've been a councillor.
I think it's brilliant that
I
we
think
are.
it's all really positive, but tonight obviously we just need to get on and deal with these and then return to the issue of the grant system, because it's flawed in many ways, I feel.
Madam Chairman, you talk about one that we've not discussed at all.
Well,
That's a letter from.
Right, which ones have we not discussed?
Well, let's get the Hepworth preschool. This is for basically a new playground surface.
Is this the one where they've been awarded £2,000 for the work and then they come back to ask for a bit more?
No.
Yeah, but
Where
there's
is it,
one.
Rich?
No, that's a found that.
It's
There was awarded
Oh, it's
£2,000
up
for
there.
the project already,
Hepworth
so that would be 7.
Oh, sorry, yeah, what was the budget?
Hepworth preschool, yeah, asking for hard standing, they're asking for £5,000, it's,
But they've already got 2 towards the same project.
yeah.
Does
Okay, I mean, any question, Councillor Hodgson? Hang on, Councillor Dix.
does Hepworth preschool and an after school club as well, is it?
Yeah.
After school.
Does that operate totally independently of the school at Hepworth, or is it on the school's grounds? And basically, this is a way of them organising us, them repairing their school playground when there's issues around us funded schools. You know, that's.
Pat, sorry, I can answer that because I'm a cover rep. It's completely separate.
That's fine, that's.
Yeah,
The building is completely separate.
So the village hall.
I thought,
It's the village hall.
I wasn't aware, but thank you.
so it's kind of, although it's
We had questions answered, let's move on.
okay. Are there any other questions on the preschool?
Could I just
Yes.
speak on behalf of the preschool? I think there was a letter that had come through from one of the ladies there. As I've said, my wife works there. It's been running for about 50 years nearly. About 20 years ago, they put a new surface down, which was so that they could play outside when the weather was bad, because there's a shelter. It's built under a shelter, and if the grass isn't fit for the children to go on to, they go and play on that area at the back. It's got wear and tear, 20 years on. They've raised £2,000 towards the amount. I think is finally going to be about £20,000 to do this work. They've raised £2,000 in funds already, I believe, and they were hoping that the parish council would make a sizable amount. They've got plenty of money from Kirklees last year to keep it going, so they didn't lose anything last year. And basically they're wanting to try and support the children and allow them to have an outside play area when the weather's not fit for them to go on the grass.
Right. Councillor Hodges.
I'm just conscious that the scheme costs £15,000, according to what they've put in here. Obviously, they're asking for £5,000 from us. But I always find it slightly surprising when people then say they haven't applied for any other grants, because even if we give them the money, they're not going to actually go to deliver it yet, are they? So, for me, this feels like one we could say, well, actually, we can potentially earmark it for next year if we wish to.
Yeah.
But I don't see the money we're giving them. We need evidence that they've done the rest.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
that's
we
what
can't
I
do
did.
it.
Yeah.
That's something you can do piecemeal, we'll do £1,000 worth here, then we'll get the rest.
And I'd be very happy to earmark money, but a bit uncomfortable just giving it to a project which there's no evidence it can be delivered.
So back to the beginning then.
Back to the beginning. Right. Now, can I ask that we be as brief as we possibly can? As I say, should we wish to, we can give nearly everything to everybody if we choose to do so. Councillor Hodges.
Well, I'm just going to pitch in with a proposal for the first one. For Hetworth Band, I think, whilst £4,000 would finish the project, if you like, we have already given them money towards the whole refurbishment project, and therefore I would suggest that we give them £2,950 towards the loft insulation, and then they just have to find the remaining £1,050 from other sources.
Do we have a seconder for that proposal?
Just what's the balance for, 'cause I can't find anything, the other bit was for, it's the roof insulation, and what was the other bit for?
Hang on.
I have to scroll through 203 pages.
Well, that's why I'm not doing it, I was hoping someone had the page up, but it's not that important. The insulation.
Prelims, no, it was roof insulation 2950 or gutter slate ridge tile repairs 1050, coming to 4,000.
I'm happy with the roof insulation, because I think that fits in with our green credentials
It is.
and things like that and what have you, and I would second Councillor Hunt's proposal.
Okay. Have you got that?
And I, on the basis that you know,
We're going to give them.
How much is that, Councillor?
2950.
2,950.
Okay.
Well, sorry, we haven't actually approved that. That's a proposal. Do we have a seconder?
Yes.
I second it.
Yes, seconded. All those in favour?
Yeah.
Everybody.
Okay, great.
Okay, one. Next one. Cinder Hills Park.
Chair, I made a proposal of this in front of the council.
Yes, indeed.
Apologies if I shouldn't have done that, but I would propose that we award them £4,450 to pay for the path and associated excavation works, and then they can consider coming back in the next financial year if they wish to seek funding from gazebo, or indeed they can look to other funds from other sources to get gazebo.
Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Blacker. All those in favour?
Yeah.
I'm against that. I think it's an item that Kirklees ought to be paying for. And if Kirklees are prepared to pay and ask for match funding, then I would support it. I'm not against doing this work. I think the way it's being done is wrong, and I think that Kirklees Council should have to
I take your point, and apropos of that, can I ask a question about something you raised earlier? I've forgotten the details of the joint initiative with us and Kirklees on parks. Can you remind us?
Well, really no impact on this. I mean, it's nothing has actually come forward. Other than Councillor Davis will bring something forward, but one of the who's head of parks and that sort of stuff is no longer with us, and I don't think they're really recruited at Kirklees. So again, a full answer. We held a minute silence for him at the previous council meeting. He's not in post, so the decision about how much is going to cost to go forward and what have you, has not been made until someone's in post to make those kind of decisions. However, we still think that will come ahead, and so I will propose an EMAP reserves that we move some of our EMAP reserves, when that's on the later item, towards parks and the upgrade of children's play, not parks, children's play areas.
Which is different to what this is up.
Which is different because it's a park.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got a proposal and seconded. Do we have any other queries other than Councillor Dixon, or can we move to a vote?
Yeah, so the grants is 5,000 for CAS, 1,000 for
Grant. The old finance committee.
or events. So we would need to identify this as actually being a cask.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is. It's already down as a cask.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, the
The
first one.
the first block of them are
The
cast.
first bunch are casks and the second bunch are.
First fibre cask.
Yeah.
The first fibre cask is one that sort of
Because
sits.
online it shows community events and highlight.
No, at the bottom of page 1 and the top of page 2, they are cask ones, and then at 4405 it comes.
Madam Chairman, a point that I didn't ask. They're talking about putting a new footpath down, and that is on land owned by, obviously, Kirklees Council. If somebody falls on that footpath, who's going to be liable? If we are giving them the money to do it, and they're laying it down, I'm just concerned that these people are getting into something and haven't got full control. If we've got a playground area, the Kirklees designated, that's fine.
Councillor Blacker,
Really quickly.
Right, yes.
Alright, so if it's a Friends of group registered with Kirklees, then they're doing community work on Kirklees assets. Never would it be fall down to the liability of the parish council, as long as they actually follow the rules of the scheme, it'd be under Kirklees.
I'm talking about the people themselves being liable, Councillor Green.
Yeah.
No.
That's answered your question. Councillor Blacker had that hand up.
As long as they do the job properly, whatever happens, the liability will be with Kirklees, as long as they do it through the approved means, which everything appears to be the case.
It is 5 to 9. We're on the second of the grants, which is the first 1/3 of the meeting.
We're all aware of that, Councillor Locker.
It's fine, I'll let it go,
Thank you.
it's fine.
Right, so what have we agreed then that we are going to do? Are we going to give them the 4?
Or 450
I think that Councillor
Right.
so I second that you
Okay.
voted. and I was
You
not
vote.
for it.
All those in favour? That's carried. Holmfirth Cricket Club, it would be 5,000 or 6,000 towards new fencing.
Where is Holmfirth Cricket Club?
Next to the river, and children will run into the river. We had a long discussion about
You
this.
vote
Please,
anyway,
let's not do it
If you
again.
walk between the sands and Holmfirth, you will pass a cricket club.
And there are steep banks into the river for children to die on.
Can I propose that we would award 5,000?
5. Does anybody second that?
Yeah.
Yes? All those in favour? Do you want to speak against or abstain?
Well, I want to give a counter proposal.
Okay.
I'm not happy about giving them £5,000 for fencing, because they have said it's starting to be a problem rather than it's actually an urgent safety thing. I'd like to give them a contribution towards it, but I would suggest we give them, well, I've written down £2,000 towards it.
I'll second that. And I would suggest that it is paid in the next year, because the fencing doesn't need to be up till the cricket season starts. And
It has to be paid this year. It's out of
It's coming out of this
this
year's
year.
budget, whether it comes today, tomorrow.
They're using the ground at the moment extensively, I've seen them, there are lots of kids running about.
Okay, so we have 2 proposals. One to give them £5,000 and one to give them £2,500.
No,
Because I said 2,000.
Sorry?
I said 2,000.
Just two.
Right, so we should vote on the amended proposal first, which is the 2,000.
Right.
I'll second it, I think Councillor Blackett, Councillor Dixon seconded the amended proposal by Councillor Hogley, so we should vote on the amended proposals first.
Right, okay. All those in favour of giving £2,000?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So that's the amendment.
That's
Okay,
carried.
right.
The amendment's carried, so we now, that's it, that becomes
No,
the thing.
it doesn't.
No, we don't.
It doesn't. We've amended the proposal from 5,000 to 2,000.
Right.
Now we have to vote whether we're going to give it them or not. I'm sorry.
All those in favour of giving the
substantive
2,000
motion.
they just approved?
Substantive motion,
Right,
yes.
carried. 2,000.
I've got that, yeah. Roundabout Rangers.
Roundabout Rangers, the oldest rugby league club in the world. We suggested it should be 3432 for whichever item it was. Lighting. I think also, if they are going to reapply for hard standing, we should ask them to get a quote for porous hard standing, not tarmac.
What the man said was lighting would be secondary and that it was to be used for
Towards the hard standing,
whether
yeah.
they use part of this. I would like to propose that we do the same with them as we've done with the cricket club and give them £2,000 which they can spend on the first part of it. And if they want to do more tarmacking and more work, they're going to have to raise some of their own.
And where do we stand on the porous hard standing rather than tarmac?
I think we prefer it to be porous.
I'd like to tell them that we'd like porous.
Can we give a conditional?
Sorry, hang on.
Would it be a lot more expensive?
It would be, I don't know whether it's a lot more, but I think it will be more. And we could consider giving them 3 if we're asking them to do something more expensive than they were planning.
Can I ask, what's on a sloped road? What's the benefit of a porous tarmac?
Well, it's a benefit.
Environmentally friendly.
Yeah.
Well,
I still-
It increases the porosity.
We're
Just
still
because it
thinking
runs
about
down.
running all the way down. Can I make a proposal?
Yes.
Can I propose that we pay for the lighting, because we know what we've got there, that's the proposal, will be the 3,000 whatever, and then we ask them if they would like to come back in the next financial year to apply for the, what is it, they would look at our, work with our climate emergency thing, and ask for advice on what would be a more, and what have you, and we would look at, a whole lot of that, rather than just asking for tarmac, asking for something that's more environmentally friendly at a later date.
Should
That's
we
my
be,
proposal.
Michael, should we be telling them to come back again?
Yes.
I think telling them is wrong. I think
Yeah.
if we were to give them a grant and then leave it to them to ask,
Yes.
rather than put it into their heads that they can ask again,
Yes.
you're going to end up with a.
Well, we will make them a grant and tell them the options that are available to them.
Well, the grant that I was suggesting was £2,000, same as to the.
Right. The proposal, I think, has shifted to 3,000 for the lighting, 3,400 for the lighting, hasn't it, Michael?
3432.
Is that what you're proposing?
I propose that.
Yeah, I seconded that.
Seconded that. All those in favour? And carried. 3432 for the lighting. And some mention of a desire for porosity.
Yeah.
So if they use it for tarmac in the
Well,
driveway.
we want evidence that they've used it. I mean, people
It's fraud,
have
isn't
to
it?
come
If
back.
money for one thing and they come and they do something else with it, it's fraud.
Yeah.
And we refer them to the authorities.
So that's that one. The
Well,
next
they
one.
can use it for
No, we have asked for it back though when people spent it on one thing. Because we had it with Homebridge Cricket Club, I think. It was a whole thing like that 4 years ago.
And it's worth, I mean, I think when we write to all of these people, there should be a note in that letter that says, we would like to see, we would like you to supply us with evidence of the work you've done, photos or whatever. Okay, the next one is Hepworth Preschool, asking for 5, and they're asking for, it's soft tarmac, so they use the word tarmac, but it's kiddie tarmac, so it's different. Council Hobby.
I would propose that we earmark £5,000 for next year and go back to them and say, we're conscious that you still have significant funds to raise to make this project viable. We've earmarked some money for you, which you can come and apply for should you manage to secure the rest of the funding to support it.
Right, but we want some evidence of where the rest is coming from. Do we have a seconder for that?
Yeah.
Thank you, Charles. All those in favour? That's carried.
So that means we've got £8,697 left in the CAS budget.
Which we need to spend.
Sorry, how much?
Which we don't need to spend.
£8,697.
Which people may apply for in February.
Yes,
They can
to
apply for
February.
Yeah.
The next one is Home First Tech Kitchen.
And that's, sorry, can I just ask, is it definitive what's being put then under the Finance and Management Grants budget line? Because given the discussion we had earlier about youth provision, and I would argue that the awning on the Scout Hut is a community asset enhancement. Because it is a
It's
building.
not an event, is it?
It's not an event, it's not really a project, it's a long-standing bit of infrastructure we're putting in.
It's more fitted.
Yes. So I would like to propose that we do support that scheme
When that comes,
from the CAS
when that comes
budget. From the CAS budget, given we have some CAS budget, because
Well,
I think
let's
it's a
do that
positive
now.
scheme.
I want to hear the end of the proposal,
So
Charles.
sorry, I would like to propose that we award £1,680 towards the supply and fixing of an awning to the Scout headquarters of the First Home Valley Scouts Group from the CAS budget.
I'll second that.
Seconded. And all those in favour? Well, does anybody want to argue against? Sorry.
this is the scale one.
Yeah.
To move for us to give them the money, basically. All those in favour?
Yeah.
Carried. The full lot and shift it into CAS because it's a CAS. Okay.
Why is the Home for Tech Kitchen not CAS?
Hang on. Let's just deal with it when we get to it.
Right.
We just react.
We are renting this.
Now, we are now saying what Rich recommended for Home Third Tech is we've got £5,000 earmarked for Home Third Tech, which has not been used. And they're asking for £5,000. So it needn't come out of our CAS budget at all. It can come out of what the money we've got earmarked for them.
Just, can anyone recall back when that was put forward that, I'm assuming we put some money to one side to help them purchase tech, and they didn't use the full amount, and there's £5,000 left
No,
in
it's
there.
not that.
Okay. Just someone can
No, we,
explain where it is, just so.
We earmarked it because we thought they would need stuff.
We knew they'd be coming back to some more.
So it says in the bit, we had 25 grand last year towards buying the building and then 5 grand towards the toilets.
Yeah.
So I'm more than happy to propose 5 grand to come from this Home Tech earmarked reserves. I'm looking for a second.
Do we have a second for that? Councillor Blacker, all those in favour? That's carried.
So that has to be recommended to full council.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. I think it's like something for Jen to take to council.
Okay. The Festival of Folk, £1,000 to close the road. Do we want to do it at all?
We talked about.
Hang up, Paul, please. There are two questions in every single one of these grants. Do we want to approve them at all? And if we do, how much do we want to give them? Do we want to give them anything at all?
Yeah.
Yes. Right. How much?
Well, is there not 2 grant applications from them?
No.
This is not.
Not from the Festival of Folk.
This is the other one.
From the Festival of Music and Arts.
No. So, £1,000 is that not?
1,000. Right. Is that proposed?
I thought we were going to make it so that.
Councillor Blacker proposed, Councillor Hockley seconded. All those in favour? Carried. Hepworth Community Singers, £680.99 for a digital piano. Propose, please. Thank you.
Yeah,
Hockley.
propose it.
Second, Blacker. All those in favour? Done. Home Firth, right, yes. Now the first of 2 from Home Firth Art and Music. This one is the Children's Parade, and they're asking for £1,000.
So, if I may ask a question, are they not on a regular line of funding? Do they not get anything? Do they
I
not?
don't think they've ever had anything from us before.
Oh.
No, they've had it, they
Oh,
They
they
have
regularly
that
get
stuff from
it.
the start, but I don't think
But they're
they
not
should-
in service provision like folk and...
Well, the issue with it would be is then it's £1,000 grant, isn't it? It's the same event, but I can't believe that we don't more support Home Birth Arts Festival than that.
No, we just give them.
In the Northwest Arts Festival, we don't support them.
Yeah,
So it's another group.
So we give them a grant, but this time they're asking for 2,000. But
Well, the other one is slightly different, because the benefit of the training one is spread across the community a bit more.
So that was
the
that.
same event.
No.
Well,
No,
the
it's
explain.
it's multiple events.
May
I
I
Charles, it's several of the festivals.
may I interject with
You
the
may.
presentation that the chap gave, and from my understanding of it, is that they've got together with the other festivals, identified a need for trained marshals and first aid people to work across all the festivals that work in Home Birth, not just the Arts Festival. And they agreed that the Arts Festival would come again and put forward for it, but the training would be for people involved in all the festivals. And that by doing that, they would have to buy in provision for first aid for all the festivals, because they would have their own first aiders trained. You know, that would be the cost benefit of it, and also for the stewarding and the marshals would have to buy in a lot of professional marshals, because that's where the marshals will train themselves and the tactics and management stuff.
We'll assume
But
that
it's across all three festivals.
So that's working across all three festivals, is it three festivals?
Folk, film and...
Yeah, and those people who were trained on that will be work across all the three festivals, just that the Art Festival put forward for the
You've
application.
convinced me. I'm comfortable to go with £1,000 a piece. I'm just surprised that we weren't supporting that.
So can we vote on the children's parade first?
I'll propose £1,000 for that.
Okay. Thank you, seconded by councillor Blacker.
Sorry,
You're going to run out of juice.
I am going to run out of juice, yes.
We've just approved £1,000 for the children's parade.
Lovely.
And
Save
all
it,
those...
Rich, and get your paper out.
Can we, would you mind moving here and using the plug in here behind me? And I think that would be, rather than it all just dying and...
Yeah.
Because I'm going to need it when the budget stuff starts.
Yeah, yeah, you're very much...
Why don't you go over where I was?
Just check, swap seats.
So for the next one,
Right,
can I propose that we also award £1,000, given it's a shared resource?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's not for
All
that
those in
festival.
favour? It's proposed... right, hang on, nobody's taking any notes. Jenny, you in charge of notes for a moment, or...?
Not right now, but give me a second to get my stuff.
Okay. If I fall asleep, wake me.
I'll keep you awake, don't worry.
Right, just repeat what you said.
Okay, this is, we've just approved the full £1,000 for the first of the Home First Art and Music Limited.
Okay.
And we've approved £1,000 for the second of the Home First Art and Music Limited.
For the training.
The first one is the children's parade, the second one's the training.
So just for completeness, shall we just take another vote
Yeah.
on both of those?
Right, all those in favour of the children's parade? Carried. All those in favour of the training? Carried. Friends of Cliffwreck, 525 for the Platinum Jubilee Beacon. Anybody proposing?
Yeah,
Rachel,
I propose it.
seconded by
That's okay.
Councillor Greaves, all those in favour? Are you not in favour, Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's everybody. I just wanted to say, and I'll come on to this when we get on to the budgets of the various committees, but Rich and I felt, given that Pubs and Cons is going to be doing a lot for this thing, Platinum, as it's called, for Her Majesty's
Yeah.
whatever next year, 70th, 60th.
Thank you.
I wonder if it makes sense for us to recommend to full council for Pubs and Cons to have a bigger budget and coordinate all the applications
Yeah.
that come in, because I think there will be more. There's going to be a few more streets here and there or groups here and there that want to do it. And pubs and commons will be able to keep an eye on who's had what and where it's been spent, and if there's one that's only one street away from the next one, better.
I think
Councillor Hogg.
Yeah, I'm not averse to that idea, but just bear in mind the Friends of Cliff organising the beacon lighting is because we went to them and said there is a national beacon lighting. You have a beacon. Would you like to organise the event?
I'm not suggesting that.
Because they have the beacon and they've done it before.
I am suggesting that we give them that money now out of our budget.
yeah.
But that the future applications that come in over the next 5-6 months are, we agreed by the end of this meeting some sort of budget for pubs and commons to be the ones that deal with it.
They don't need the money yet.
Hang on, Paul.
Okay, but pubs and commons previously it has got a Royal Events budget, which previously we've given little, like £100 grants, which have just been managed within the pubs and commons.
Well, there's an even bigger thing, but Councillor Hogg.
We will deal with budgets. We'll deal with budgets when the budgets arise.
I think.
Can we finish doing grants and seal them off and dusted and get there?
Yeah. So that's Cliff Rail. Health Tech for the yoga. I have to say, apart from the fact that I suspect it should be Kirklees, I don't know whether the parish should get involved in providing health provision.
No.
I'm really concerned about the precedent here. Councillor Hodgson.
So I noticed when I was in here earlier on, there was a yoga class going on in that room there that someone hires. I don't know whether it's the Civic Hall put it on, or someone hires a room, they put it on there.
Somebody hires it,
One
and more than one a week.
One of those happens. I'm a little bit uncomfortable that someone who's just qualified and starting to run a yoga business is applying for a grant to put on a yoga class. Yeah, there wasn't enough there to make me think that, well, you know, I could test for business and a dog walking business and come to the parish council and tell them the benefits of the people and me walking their dogs, and can you give me some money towards it? I might be not doing a bit of an injustice there, but that's just my feelings.
Okay, Councillor.
I agree with that. I feel pretty uncomfortable about this one, and you know, had they sent somebody other than the person who's delivering it, it might have been less uncomfortable. As it was, I thought it was really uncomfortable. And the fact that they put venue hire in, you know, it doesn't feel right to me.
Councillor Dixon and Councillor Greaves.
Well, it was both the venue hire and this £900 for her wages. I don't think we officially should be paying wages to somebody for providing something that ought to be self-funding. This one down here is self-funding. They haven't asked us for any money. And so my suggestion is we can't give it.
Councillor Greaves.
Okay, so
Briefly, if you're speaking to agree with everybody.
no, I wouldn't bother to speak to agree with everybody. I'll just say, so I am uncomfortable with this, but I do like the idea of it. The costs are completely all over the place. There's some merit in it. I get where you're coming from with Kirklees, but really this is an NHS locale type of initiative. So my suggestion for this one would be to politely say no, but if you want to go back and develop something along with the Kirklees Wellness Service and locale and NHS, and you're looking for some community funding, then we would look to contribute to perhaps look to contribute towards something. But I would expect this really to be GP led. It is more than just regular yoga, and there are some specialist yoga ones who you know the session rates can be high, but I'm not comfortable with all the numbers, to tell you the truth. So rather than just a no, I think it might be a case of we can't support this, but if you pull something together, then we'd be happy to hear from you.
Together and kind left it.
Yes.
I suspect that she's raised it with the tech and they've said, oh, you might be able to get some money from the parish council.
Well, no, I know who Claire is. So Claire Baldwin is one of the community engagement ones. So they're trying to signpost people to community and voluntary activities to try and encourage people to get out and about, and they really do kind of social care side of social prescribing. So,
but it is being stopped. The government is stopping. They're not going to pay GPs anymore.
Well, that's perhaps why
that sort of
if the GPs value it and there's not enough money, then maybe we should look to look at.
We welcome the idea, but we don't feel that.
We need a better proposal, don't we?
Yeah. Okay, yes.
Can I just say, it was Councillor Davies that sent her in our direction.
All right.
No, I can understand why. It's just that I don't think Councillor Davies will see the exact details.
She
might be worth sending them to her.
She could be she could do with either finding somebody or who can do it, or getting guidance from us on how to do the costings and whatnot.
We might have got the wrong end. I might be doing an injustice and got the wrong end of the stick. And so maybe a better proposal that points me in the direction of the right end of the stick would be helpful.
Yeah.
I think it's just a point. I was there when it was being discussed.
Can I just ask a clarification? What do we mean by the right end of the stick? What kind of proposal would be?
So depends how big the stick is.
Even CIC do the woodland wellness sessions, so something along those lines. So she could look up the details for that. And Kirklees have referred people to that, and I'm sure that I think it's got some funding. And one of our grant applications refers to even Cinder.
It's this one.
No, it's Cinder.
Is it Cinder Hills?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's right.
So the Eden Forest work. So there is a few that do the wellness.
I think also I would suggest we point them towards looking for sources of funding that are linked to healthcare outcomes. Because there are,
there are
funds
quite a
targeted
few
on
things.
different things.
Okay, the Scouts. Earlier, we informally said we...
We've done that. We've done it. We only took it as cask.
All right.
We moved it to cask and that's how we voted on it.
So we approved it.
We've approved it. Have we, Haydage Band, new uniforms. They're asking for 1,500, we can only give them 1,000 if we leave them here. Do we want to point them at youth? Councillor Pogson.
I think we deal with what we can deal with here. We may want to write to them a later date and say you might want to look to youth provision, they may do, they may not want to do. I take on board Councillor Greaves's points regarding uniforms could be paid for every football team's kit in the whole Home Valley if we go kind of down that route. If it's a training band and they learn to play and what have you, then, instruments, I'm quite happy to pay towards instruments.
Well, the instruments is only about...
The bread and
So pay for the instruments but not the hobbies, is that
That's my...
Right. Councillor Hockley?
Sorry, was I first?
No,
Sorry. No. I'm not happy about getting the uniform because I don't think it's not a
It's
long-term
just going
asset.
on for it.
But I would like to propose that we purchase the £400 worth of equipment, which then can be reused.
Councillor Barker?
I was going to say, I think they've had a really rough year, and this, I'm just taking issue with the uniform thing. I would have thought in the future, when they start generating some income from performing, then they will provide the uniforms. I just think a lot of this is recovery from COVID, because it certainly hit them really, really hard.
So are you making a counter proposal to add some
Yes,
uniform on top of it?
yes, I'll make a counter proposal that we give them 1,000.
Give them 1,000.
I'll take the 1,000.
Right, okay, the counter proposal that we need to discuss first is, I think we'll just go to a vote on this, won't we? We've all said our say. Whether we give them 1,000, which is partly for the equipment and some of the uniform cost. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3. Right, the original proposal.
Well, that's chair's casting vote.
That's chair's casting vote, so that's carried.
Ah, right. Okay, that's carried.
So then we need to vote on that.
Now I need to vote, you've agreed the
The
amendment.
amount is now 1,000.
The amount is now 1,000, now I need to vote
Right,
whether.
so do we agree to give them 1,000? All those in favour?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Done.
Do we understand that perhaps why the other three of us are a bit uncomfortable because it's the uniform bit? But I'm
It's-
fine. I haven't got a problem with what's
No,
happening.
I'm happy with democracy, but, you know, that's, the outcome's fine.
Can I just ask, and I'll feedback to them, that we just, it's fine, it's going towards uniform, but
Don't tell
other
me.
bands have asked for things like the hangings that they put on their stands, which are reusable. And I think it's just worth stressing that because the uniform is not reusable, unless it's scarves they reuse, or waistcoats or something, then we're
It would
not,
be helpful.
I wouldn't like them to come back again every year on something.
Well, perhaps
because
we
I'm
could
certainly
say
not-
that we see this as a kick-start for them to get going.
Yes,
And we don't expect for
Yeah.
uniforms, I mean, we're not precluding equipment or
It'd be
anything in
great
the
if we-
future, but we don't expect to see future applications for uniforms.
It'd be great if the report had back that they spent £1,000 on a whole load of band-related items that didn't include uniform.
Yeah.
I think for this trainer band, don't know whether there'd be more instruments in there or whatnot. But
They've been very fortunate
Stop
today,
that.
of ANH band, that they've had a benefactor.
Anyway, so we're giving them a kick-start, we're giving them the equipment, a kick-start with the uniforms, we don't expect future applications for uniforms, though other applications are always welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, home first, this calendar.
This falls into the same one as it's, sorry, man.
I
Through the
think
chair, who's speaking first?
Councillor Poxon.
It falls into someone decided they want to make a calendar and they've pinned some sort of two charity build groups want to put towards it. It's retrospective, isn't it? It's already there, and yeah.
Well, my concern is that it amounts to the parish council making charitable donations to
Yeah.
the two. In effect, it's us making charitable donations to these two charities.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit concerned about that. Is there anybody who wants to speak in favour of this one?
All I will say is it is the Home Valley Mountain Rescue, and that is for something for the Home Valley.
Yeah.
That they are trying to raise money. I know the Forget Me Not Trust covers Home Valley as well as rest of Huddersfield. I think what they're doing is right. I think it's a good idea, and I think it's nice that they're doing it. Whether we can award them any money, I'm unsure.
Councillor Thompson?
I'm looking at it differently if Home Valley Mountain Rescue and what's the other one? The Home
Forget Me Not.
Forget Me Not Trust both came together with this concept of doing a calendar for the Home Valley with the way of kickstarting to then raise funds and keep them going and what have you. But this is not what this is.
I think we'd all feel more comfortable if the Home Valley Rescue came to us for a bit of equipment.
Yes. Yes.
can I ask, how do we know it's already been printed?
Well, because it's a member.
Yeah, but I don't think it has been.
Has it not been printed?
No, it has.
Rich
It's been
thinks it
printed.
has, yeah.
We've got
Yeah.
one.
Well, you've got one, so it has been printed.
Is it nice? Is it a good calendar?
If it's retrospective, so it's ineligible, and it's that's why.
Yeah.
I think that's
Okay.
Half an hour ago.
yeah. But I didn't quite
Right,
understand how
okay.
it was.
Well, do
Now-
you want to propose we don't give them that? I propose we don't give them all.
Yeah.
Yes.
All those in favour?
Almost no right.
Yes.
But do it.
Right, my laptop's about to die, and I haven't brought my cable.
What sort of size? What do you need?
It's alright. It'll be alright. I'll wing it.
So in
You
terms
can
of,
look over my shoulder if you want.
Alright.
Let's keep
So,
moving
Peter,
on.
point of order.
so in terms of money we've got left in each of the budgets, in the cast budget we've got about 7,000 left. In the F&M grants budget we've got about 11,000 left. So still quite a lot of money
We've
left.
got a lot left for February.
That's good.
No problem.
I'd rather that than have nothing
Why
left
is
of it.
understanding good?
Good, we've got money that we can still
So-
spend within this financial year for people who come in February.
Pass.
Yes, that is.
I'm not a fan of underspending, but I'm also not a fan of spending it in the early part of the year. And, you know, it's a budget that lasts throughout the whole year. Yeah, so we've got all the way till you know, February.
I'm not in favour of spending it just for the sake of spending it.
Move on.
The councillor, sorry, yeah, right. So the next point is the Civic Hall. Now, I have here, that at the moment, they're not asking for anything in particular, but, and this is about earmarking for the,
Sorry,
yes?
can I speak to this item, because it's about taking money from the budget within the Climate Emergency Standing Committee budget, and it's because it's more than £5,000 that we're having to bring it to full council, but it therefore has to come via finance and management, because climate emergency isn't allowed to recommend grants as such without it coming through F&M. So what this is about is the Climate Emergency Committee funded a energy audit of both the Home First Civic Hall and Honley Library. And for the Home First Civic Hall, it came up with a whole raft of different things that could be done. Lots of them were quick wins, things like replacing all these terrible light bulbs and all the lighting throughout the hall, doing work to the water heater, and basically it was up to £10,000 worth of things that could be done, which many of which had a payback within a year or two. They were fairly quick paybacks that should reduce the operational costs of the Civic Hall. And to some extent, the Climate Emergency Committee, the whole point of doing the energy audit is to identify what the challenges are, and then because we'd set aside budget to deliver carbon reductions through energy management, we want to lead by example and support the Civic Hall in implementing these things as soon as possible, so that we can start seeing the benefits of both the recommendations in practice and also making the hall more sustainable in the long run.
So where's the money coming from?
It's in the climate emergency budget, but we're not allowed to award any grants.
So what decision do we need to make now?
That we recommend to full council that £10,000 is awarded to the Civic Hall
And
to
you're
fund the
proposing
recommendations of the energy audit. Yeah.
And you just proposed that,
Yes.
and I've just seconded it.
And Councillor Pogson.
Just I mean, to this committee, I see it's pure, I think we're all grass, it's pretty much procedural. It will be debated by the full council. To say that, you know, as long as it's procedurally we're correct and what have you, we're okay with it and what have you, then I think just
let's get
And there'll be a bit more information that sits
and there will be full debate by the full council,
Yeah.
Send it on its way.
Okay.
Right.
I look forward to that debate.
Is it not common knowledge that the Civic Hall have had a large grant from another body in the Home Valley, and £10,000 would be peanuts compared with the amount
Well,
of
we'll come on to expenditure on the Civic Hall in about 3 items' time, so we can discuss that later.
So
all those in favour of putting it to full council that we take this money out of climate emergency for the Civic? One carried. The next one is a similar one.
Right, this is a similar one, if I can just talk to this one. Again, the Climate Emergency Standing Committee, again, has a budget for doing this proposal, but it has to come through F&M and then go to full council because it's in excess of £5,000. This is towards the purchase of what's called a cargo bike, which is a bicycle that is an electric powered that can provide deliveries in the local area. And the intention is to follow the successful pilot that happened in Hebden Bridge, where they went from one cargo bike delivering goods from local businesses throughout the valley, so they can go up and down hills, powered mostly by volunteers to start with, and they now have, I think it's 6 bikes that are running across the valley. So it's about demonstrating a sustainable means of transportation, showing you don't need to have a van going round, and it's being led by EPICS, which is Environmental Projects in Cretlees, I think it's called. That's the organisation that actually gets the bike and trains the people, and this is the cost of the bike and the accessories that go with it. So that is like lights, lock.
Who bears for the driver of this bike?
Well, to start with, it's powered by volunteers who are willing to do it. And I've got a little sheet here about it. But the idea is this is about championing and providing an example, a demonstrable, visible thing that's going around the valley, showing there is an alternative way of delivering stuff that isn't reliant on a van.
To save the debate on the actual merits of cargo bikes, again, this is pretty much a procedural thing, and I look forward to the debate at full council that we will have.
Do you really?
Okay? And I would rather save us from debating that here right now.
Let's not do it twice.
And if it's just a procedural thing, then I propose that I second that, and we send it
And
in its
put it to
way.
full council. Councillor Dixon, are you happy that you can object to this in full council and you don't need to tonight?
Why is he objecting?
May
He's
not
right.
Might be right, isn't it?
I'm guessing you might be.
They'll be building their houses.
I want rid of this committee, never mind.
Right.
It's climate emergency committee that we want rid of.
My case rests
Let
there.
at least
But we won't discuss it now, we'll go straight to a vote and then we can have the discussion about the rights or wrongs of it at full council. All, we've got, seconded by councillor Pogson, all those in favour? Carried. Okay. 21-22-63. The first one is to note that the chairman spent out. The second one is to note the completed list of payments. The third one is to consider approving pending transactions for November 2021. You've had a chance to look at them. Are you happy with the pending transactions? Can we approve them?
I love the bench legs.
The what?
The bench legs.
The bench legs, yes. So, do I need a proposal or a second? Or can I just go to a vote? Proposed by councillor Hobley, seconded by councillor Greaves. All those in favour? Carried. Financial statements, right. 64 is basically looking at all the bank statements, reconciliations and VAT. Now, if we choose to go through all of this, we will be here till next Wednesday. Councillor Pogson.
I think it's only fair that we don't, steamroller it through and put pressure on people that they're going to run out of committee meeting, that we should just steamroll it through. However, I do think it would be good to ask all the councillors here if they've got any item that they would like to discuss.
Exactly.
And if there isn't, then we could move to a vote. But I think putting the presumption on people that we will move on and shabby on through is not how we should be conducting
No, I
this
agree.
committee.
I wasn't actually going to do that. I was just going to, but you've all had these papers for a week or more. So have you got particular queries that have cropped up on any of these? Because it is our job to raise queries on these, if there are any. Anybody?
I could address the issue that Councillor Hobley raised today with regard to the earmark reserve. I could cover that. So basically, when the £5,000 was paid as a grant to Hofer Tech in July, I put it through the other assets budget line. However, in the last meeting of full council, we agreed there that it come out of earmark reserve, the 333 Hofer Tech earmark reserve. So I've had to contact our accounts people and basically swap those two amounts, which is why we had an extra 5,000 in the other community assets budget to play with today, and there's 5,000 less in the Hofer Tech earmark reserve budget. There was 10,000 until earlier today, and now there is 5,000.
So the
And now there
total,
will be none.
the grant total is correct. It's just moved where it sits.
Just moving it about there.
Thank you. Okay. That brings us, if nobody's got any queries on the previous reconciliations and bank statements and whatnot. I mean, I'll repeat my thing that the longer we leave this money in the bank, the less money we'll have because they charge us.
Can I just ask one question, which isn't really about the accuracy of it, but I'm conscious that the COVID response line items, presumably we haven't had anything within this financial year that's claimed on, is that right?
Well,
It's all just
I don't think
left
we
over
really
from-
knew what to do. You know, we didn't really have a process to manage it in a sense, did we? So we kind of need to sort it for next year, if not this year.
Okay,
yeah.
that's fine.
Which brings us to Holmfirth Civic. Now, I have got a memo. Doug's and I asked Judith.
This is not about that, councillor.
65.
Yeah, this is a specific point about finances. It's not about.
All right.
So shall I just address this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Yeah, so in the last meeting of council, I don't know whether you remember, but I thought that we had to balance the budget in a sense that we had to move money from our general reserves to balance this this payment of £40,000 was in a sense unexpected because it was carried over from last year. So I got agreement at the last council meeting that we would move money from general reserves to basically offset this. However, when I was speaking to our accounts people about that, they told me that we shouldn't do that. It should just be as a minus. It should just go through as a minus amount. As long as we can obviously explain why it's a minus amount, then that's what you do. So this is basically I know in a sense it's undoing something that we decided at the last council meeting, but in a sense we have to because
it's not right.
it was bad practice in the first place. So it's just undoing the bad practice and.
Can we refer it back to the next full council meeting to be rectified?
Yeah, that's a good way of
Well,
putting it.
are we agreed that we'll recommend it to full council?
That amount of money we knew we were going to be spending. It was earmarked to spend. We wanted to spend it a certain way, which Richard thought was right. He'd been told by the accountant that's not the way to do it. So we want to do it the proper way and keep Richard right, keep the accountant right, and let's have everybody happy.
Yeah. Everybody happy on that? Sorry, Rachel.
From what Councillor Dixon just said, the implication was we would then discuss it again at full council, but aren't we just saying we're happy with it here?
Yeah.
Well,
we have to go to full council.
Oh, if it doesn't have to go to full council, then we'll take it to vote tonight.
Well, the original decision was full council, wasn't it?
That's what I thought. It'd have to go back to full council for.
And we can't trump full council.
I suppose so. Yeah.
But we're not changing the decision, no, we're just.
We're recommending that we're recommending doing it the way Realtors have recommended to Richard, and that it be a one-liner, and we just note it at full council and let it go through. I think we've got to do it through full council, otherwise we might seem to be.
Courtesy would suggest that we should, wouldn't it?
And could I just make a point about? Oh, sorry, you had your hand up.
No, it's fine. It was covered by this.
And I just wanted to make the point that because of that process, we will probably end up with a deficit budget this year. You know, we will end up probably for the first time in many years with a deficit of about it's probably going to be about £13,000, something like that.
Okay.
So that needs to be factored into your budget calculations that kick in later.
Well, we may not spend all of the Cascand grant money, so it might be less than
Sorry, are we recommending then that this arrangement proceeds? Because we need to make it as short and sweet as possible, so the full council get the information, but we don't open up and then enormous debate about the actual awarding of the budget, because it wasn't.
So we're recommending to full council that our finances reflect the Realtors' recommendation.
Okay, second by Charles. All those in favour? Passed. Tenancies. There is a recommendation here that.
Madam Chairman, I went to pick Richard up and we went round the various things. The thought in my eyes were, if we've got people paying £40 for an allotment, that's fair enough and it's a good amount of money. The ones that are on the smaller plots, I felt were the ones that could take a rise, but give them another year before giving me a year's notice that it was going up to £25, and then we have a waiting list of people, if anybody wishes to object to these amounts and not pay. The garage sites, they're only singles and doubles, and they're only ground rents. And I haven't proposed to do anything about those. As regards the outside building, I don't know whether we discussed it, Richard, just how we were going to do about that, but I know you said that they were just trying to get it going, and because of COVID we'd had problems, and that you give them what they call it, a period of time where we didn't charge rent on it.
Can I suggest we do the allotments and dark signs separately, because there are different dynamics going on.
I'd like to propose my figures for the tenancies, that the allotments and the garage be as listed here.
Do Do we have a seconder?
Councillor
Hogley, Councillor Pogson.
Yeah, just to clarify, are these per year, per month, per week?
Per year.
So the gas site building week's £400 a year, is it?
No, sorry, no, I should have said that. No, that's a month, that is.
Okay, that's what I need to clarify. Can we maybe type up the minutes? Can we make that?
Yeah,
can we clarify that point? Because then you're looking at the outside.
Okay,
I thought so.
Yeah.
I'm not going to rent it.
We'll work first.
I'm moving.
We'll work first on the allotments. All those in favour of the proposal for the allotment charges?
Sorry, we're taking the allotments or the allotments and garages?
And garages, everything but go outside.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Carried.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's this question of Kirklees Council have been in touch about payment. To consider agreeing in principle to pay the charge. If it is getting building regulations passed for a change of use to whatever, I'd like to recommend that Richard completes the application, and I think we should pay for it, because whether it's this tenant or whether it's the next tenant, I think it's our responsibility. Can we get on with sorting that out?
Over and above.
I'll second what Mary said about giving them till January.
Let's keep the tenant, the current tenant, and that thing separate. Can we, over and above who's a tenant and for how long, do we feel we should pay this charge and get this get it registered?
If that is necessary to keep it to the shop.
So you're proposing item 3, we deal with that now?
Yeah.
Yeah, and get that dealt with out of the way. I'll second that.
Right. All those in favour? Right, that's correct. So item 3 is dealt with. Now, so we've agreed, I think we've dealt with that issue. Now we need to move on to setting the budget. It is 10 o'clock.
Let's crack on then.
So,
right, so should I just go through this?
Yes.
Please do.
Right, so in terms of the colours that I've used on this, so the green ones are basically where the amount is the committee or the council has just asked for the same amount as last year, so hopefully there's not a lot of controversy with those. The ones in orange are where there's a slight uplift or an uplift, but where there's something fairly obvious about why it's needed. The ones where I've got a kind of red edge to it are ones where decisions need to be made, or a committee chair or a committee spokesperson might want to say a few words. So I suggest we just work through it line by line.
Yeah.
And we'll.
Okay. Are we happy with sundries, postage, audit, and all that stuff? I mean, sorry, sundries and postage.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Audit.
Yep.
Bank charges.
Yeah.
Chairman's expenses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Civic regalia. We need to. Do we want to continue with past chairs getting?
I thought we voted that we didn't.
We've already
We did. We voted against it, didn't we?
I thought we voted that people had to. I mean,
No, I think we voted that the last chair but one could have, if they wanted, but thereafter we wouldn't.
So now it's 0.
That's right.
Okay.
Conferences, seminars, okay?
Yeah.
Elections, if we need to have 30,000, this is just my thought, by 23/4, and we have money now in unearmarked reserves, why don't we put most or all of it in now and then it's done? Earmark it for elections.
There's already a lot in the pot though.
What's in the pot at the moment?
It's about 20. It comes up to about 20 and we need 30. We can put the other 10 in and it's done.
Well, you're putting in 5 a year, though, aren't you?
5 years, that gets there, that hits it.
5 years, do it down.
So you can't precept without purpose. So you can't say that. So if you're taking it from reserves to save off of a budget item, you might end up having to shrink back the total
There
budget.
is a purpose. We know there will be elections, we know what they'll cost, and it's perfectly okay to earmark money towards election costs, which will happen in 2 years.
We don't know what they're going to cost.
We know, we can estimate.
We can guess.
The
It's
5,000
not just, I'm not just precepting for no reason. I mean, I'm just suggesting we put the remainder in and get it done.
No, leave it as it is.
Hang on,
leave
there's
it as
somebody
it
else
is.
to, Michael.
If the 5,000 a year is going to hit it, I think you should spread the
It
cost.
isn't, it comes out about 5,000 short by my calculation.
No, it
doesn't it?
doesn't.
It's 20,000 in the pot, we'll have 5 this year and 5 next year.
Right, okay.
So I think.
Okay, move on. Maintenance repairs. Anybody concerned? No. Insurance.
Which is what it
Members'
is.
travel allowance. I'm going through, a shout if you've got a query. Office equipment. Office room hire. Anchor tenancy. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah?
but what's that for here?
Yeah.
Well, the 10,000 is for here.
We pay for this room.
I put an extra 500 in for our use of paid edge and
Oh, okay.
other venues, basically.
Salaries.
So that will go. That will potentially go up. Jen might well take some extra hours on from January.
Oh, of course, yes.
So
So
that's
for members' benefit who aren't on the staffing committee, there's a recommendation from the staffing committee to full council that from January, Jen's hours increased by 7 hours a week. That's right, isn't it? Yeah, it is. For a 6-month period. And then at that 6 months will be a review as to whether that extra additional hours is still required or what might happen.
So we need to increase that cost.
so that would equal
That's okay.
£1,900 over. Is that right? Is that what it works out?
Then we're going to delete the next two. I mean, there's no point. FOIA, EIR, is that freedom of information?
Yeah.
Subscriptions, local council award scheme, delete, yeah. Telephone and broadband, training staff, training counsellors. Now I suggest, and it's just a bit of tidying up, but in finance and management we have an item called 4400 electronic support maintenance. And that is things like Zoom and whatnot. Well, I think that belongs in the full council with telephone, broadband, email and all the rest.
I think you've got a good argument for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
It
can
doesn't
we
just
move
support
on?
parts of maintenance, it's like the day-to-day runs.
Yeah,
For this day and age.
so can I suggest we move 4400 into full council?
Oh,
Any queries or other comments on the full council items we just...
just for that one, what amount are we going to set?
For the Zoom, well, currently it's down as 1650 for...
I think that's probably enough, councillor. The reason it was so high this year was because of the set-up costs for the accounts package. It was a one-off set-off of about £1,000, so I suspect the 1650 is probably enough.
That's two, isn't it?
Right, that brings us into F&M. Assets, 53,000. Which is
basically the same as last year.
same as last year. Now, we may think that inflation is such, or just the cost of building material, and given that assets are often about building and maintenance, we may feel that should be increased a bit.
We've got some earmarked reserves though still, haven't we, for Holland Library and...
No, they're on a different, no, they're in a different section.
Yeah, but they won't be coming out, that's what it means.
Yeah.
They're earmarked elsewhere, so that 53,000 doesn't
Oh yeah,
include the library.
yeah, I'm with you. Sorry, I misunderstood you.
Well, I'm comfortable to stay at 53.
Anybody not comfortable? No?
It's like a random
It
number.
is.
It was scientifically generated last year on the basis of expressions of interest, but we haven't really done that this year. So
And then grants, we've got 20,000 now. Given how much we've just given, and given the cost of living, we might want to increase this a bit.
Well, remember we did have to drum up interest. So again, I'm comfortable with 20,000 unless we've got a plan to actually go further than we normally do.
I think we doubled it. We doubled it last year for the first time. Oh, sorry, this year for the first time, didn't we?
Yeah, that's been a double, so I don't think we need to go.
I don't think we need to go higher.
No, I think we're up to edge.
Okay.
And then we can delete maintenance of public clubs. And that would make the total finance and management 73,000, not 74,650. Planning.
Right, can I just comment on this one? It says neighbourhood plan, but we probably ought to give it another name, which is kind of neighbourhood plan implementation. Because obviously the neighbourhood plan is now, well, 99% made. It needs to go through cabinet at Kirklees next month, but to formally go over the last percent. But the sense from this, and it was discussed at the planning committee, was that there's various projects that could fall out of the neighbourhood plan in terms of we have an awful lot of actions in it, which, you know, things like engaging with people about heritage assets, is exploring more community participation in planning decisions. There's quite a lot of different things, even pursuing potential highway schemes, like we mentioned about 20 mile an hour zones, for example. They're just a whole range of things, and it seems a little bit funny not to set aside any budget to potentially take those forward. And I would suggest we put it in for this year with the expectation that we then need to, as a planning committee, work out what things, potentially, you know, how we communicate with the community about the sort of initiatives that's likely.
I thought it was supposed to make money and not cost money, I was told this.
And are you content that 10 is enough? Because now is the time to ask for more, not halfway through the year to get things right.
I think 10 is enough for the moment, because I think at the minute we've got, as a planning committee, we've got to get our heads around how we can maximise the impact of the neighbourhood development plan. And I think it's good to have some money set aside to do that, but I wouldn't want to set aside more at this stage because, you know, it's still an evolving thing.
Okay, so that makes total planning committee, you're chair of planning, it would be.
What are we calling it?
I would say neighbourhood plan implementation.
Okay.
Wow. No, just the implementation, because it's about
I'll be
making it,
facetious.
it's making it mean something.
Just ignore.
Yeah, but put in implementation. Because it's,
Right, so that brings us on to pubs and cons. Now, I want to suggest the thing I touched on earlier, that I think there are two things coming up that could be pubs and cons. One is certainly Platinum, where I think there will be a lot of I think there could well be quite a lot of little applications, like the Cliff Wreck.
sorry, Chair, can I just comment on this one as a member of pubs and cons?
Yeah.
Because people might be wondering what the different line items are. Obviously, I think, you know, Community Champions is, everyone knows what that is, in terms of highlighting people in the community and awarding them with a trophy thing. But the publications and publicity is the newspaper, so giving stuff to the Home Valley Review. The Royal and National Events, the reason that's gone from what was £1,000 up to £10,000 is because it's put forward that we have a Platinum Jubilee project which is run by the Parish Council, and my proposal on that will come in more detail at full council, but the principle is we want to provide packets of seeds to every primary school child across the whole of the Home Valley, and also put in a fruit tree in each of the 13 settlements in the Home Valley with a little plaque in a to be agreed location, so that there is something with longevity, but there is also the opportunity to connect with thousands of school children. Now, I understand from councillors who've been on the council for longer than me, it's quite typical to do a fairly big project to celebrate the Jubilee and to involve school children, because it's a nice thing for them to feel part of, and it's a good way to engage with the community in a wide way. And it's, from our point of view as a parish council, it's a way to not only mark the Jubilee, and Prince Charles saying it's a Jubilee, but also it fits with the climate emergency desire to raise awareness of climate change and what people can do to encourage bees in their garden and encourage biodiversity and that sort of thing. So that's the précis of the project, but I will provide a bit more information with the costs.
But I was going to, my suggestion was that we give you more than that, and you coordinate all the other Platinum events as well. I mean, if we're going to have, it's silly to have some Platinum events coming to F&M and some coming to pubs and cons.
What What would be coming to FNM?
I don't know.
Well,
what
the
that
street,
means.
well, people like Cliff Red might be applying. We
Yeah,
don't.
but Cliff Rec has come about because we had a discussion about beacons, and we went to Cliff Rec and said, you've got beacon, the permanent beacon, and so would you like to host an event? And I think I originally, we discussed about whether it would come out of the pubs and commons budget or whether it could just go to the F&M one. But I think there is potentially space for what we've done in previous years for things like the Tour de France when it came, and for the World War centenary commemorations, where we had up to £100 grants, and they were managed with a simple one-pager and done through the Publications and Communications Committee. I'm quite happy for £1,000 to be set aside for that,
Yeah.
but I don't think we need thousands and thousands set aside for pubs and comms to give to street parties.
No, I'm not
Because I don't
suggesting
think
that.
I don't think those applications will come. I think small ones, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Pogson.
I think we've already sort of had a discussion earlier on when we were dealing with grants, that some of the grants could possibly have gone somewhere else, and you know, from the clerk and what have you there, it will get better. I'm sure it will get, you know, signposted people. This is no criticism, but I think as everyone gets more familiar with the process, things will get signposted to them to the most appropriate.
I mean, the trouble with this batch was we got like 10 in one day.
Yeah.
On the last day, didn't we? We got 10 on the 8th of November.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a nightmare.
Okay.
So I think, you know, the grants should stay where they are rather than creating somewhere else for them to possibly go to, and another meeting going, well, shouldn't this go to pubs and comms and their grant? You know, I think we should stay where we are. And then I also, you know, I know it's a small committee, pubs and comms, and when are they, without them knowing when they're going to meet, I don't know what their schedule is, and I know they don't meet, is it 4 times a year? So the opportunity for them to run grants to it or whatever is very, very little, so.
Well, in that case, if we want to keep it in F&M, let's add 1,000 into the grant.
Madam Chairman, it was made known that they were talking about planting trees and seeds and one thing and another. I don't know whether it was 10 years ago, whether it was the 60th anniversary or the 50th anniversary of the Queen's reign. I think it was the 50th. Every school child in the Home Valley got a beaker.
Yeah, well, they're not going to get a bag of seeds this time.
We granted them that. I think a bag of seeds, to me, I don't know. I don't think, in the bounds of being eco-friendly and all this niceness, yes, but it isn't something that you can remember.
Well, yes it is. They live, if you plant wild flowers, you have them forever.
You plant wild flowers, they die the day after.
Maybe in your garden.
Can I
Councillor Pogson.
just ask, the bag of seeds that we're giving,
Yeah.
It's normally a couple of weeks before we start.
is it going to be a paper bag, or is it going to be a little hessian bag with seeds that says in commemoration
No,
of
it's
the
a nice,
Jubilee?
it's a nice hessian bag.
So the bag with the seeds in
Yeah.
it will
And it has
become a
the
memento
label
of
on and
itself.
yes, it can.
The seeds will be distributed and the
Yeah.
bag will become a memento of itself.
And the intention is, you would then, in the background, you'd have, I would like us to do an assembly in each of the schools talking about A, the Jubilee, and B, the climate emergency. And making it, and there'll be posters and there'll be we're not going to give loads of leaflets, but we can have electronic communication. It needs refining and developing,
So
but the principle is,
I think
if we're going to do it, we're going to do it properly.
It's nice to have an assembly and talk about the Queen and her reign. I think to shove this climate change down their throats is totally the wrong time to do that.
Well, I could argue that we shouldn't throw in royalism down people's throats, but I'll refrain from that.
Councillor Blacker has her hand up before you.
I was just going to say, not speaking as a vice councillor, but from Friends of Cliff Rec, that if we're going to be approaching schools, I was going to be approaching schools about writing some poetry and doing these grants and things, and it might be a good idea to actually liaise so we don't have to have multiple approaches to schools, because I know many schools are actually struggling, and I'm not sure how many of them are actually going to have the energy to actually to do a great deal for the Jubilee. Okay.
So, do we agree we should put an extra 1,000 in F&M for possible little celebrations like the Cliff Rec one that might come in?
I won't argue against it.
I beg your pardon?
I wouldn't argue against it if you really want to.
It depends if we're doing it as a different
Is it,
thing though, isn't it?
is it a
£100,000
mismission?
grants, or is it?
Well, it can be whatever you want it to be, but you suggested having a sum that was £100, you know,
Yeah.
10 £100 grants. Councillor Pogson said, let's not mess about putting it in Republicans and Commons, let's leave it where it is. I don't know which it's in. Rich.
But pubs and commons have regularly done that, given out
Yeah.
small grants, so it's not as if it's a
Not a new
novelty.
thing.
It happens nearly every year.
So are we saying we should give it to pubs and
I
commons?
think we should leave it in pubs and commons.
I will say this.
Give them more, is what I'm saying. We said an extra 1,000 for...
There's a
No,
thousand,
because it's
there's a
special
thousand in it
projects.
anyway.
It's special projects.
Well, you think you've got enough there for all the, if there are additional
I
applications?
think so.
If you enough grants, we take it.
Okay,
And the
carry on with your tidy traders and that, it says.
Oh, right, okay, well,
Take the
well,
rest.
Tiny Traders obviously didn't run it this year, but we intend to do it next year, so it usually costs £100 to buy the certificates and that sort of thing. Website media coordination, that's, what say about that, Rich? That's just our standards. Oh, hang on, we haven't spent as much on that one.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure where that is. I mean, it's normally about 1,000, so it probably will come later on in this
Yeah.
financial year.
I'm sorry, this is not,
Councillor Pogson.
this is not really to do with the budget and whatever, but I was just checking the committees list the other day and it's massively out of date on the website. Sorry about that, I'm giving you more work, sorry, I do
No,
apologise.
that's fine.
And I think the special projects is what we were just talking about, having 10 grants of £100.
Okay.
Because I think, to be honest, because there's some discussion in pubs and commons about whether we should permanently have the sort of rolling money for as and when there is a big royal coronation or whatever. But let's be honest, if that was to happen, we could, if as and when it happens, we could always ask
Well,
for an environment for full
you
council.
preempted me, because I was going to say, as a full council thing right down at the end, I think we should start putting some money aside for Operation Westminster Abbey, which will follow hot on the...
I think it's formally called Operation London Bridge.
Well,
It has a
no,
formal name.
London Bridge is the death of the monarch. I'm
Oh, I see.
suggesting, I'm not talking about that.
There's
I'm
not
talking
coordination.
about that which follows the death of the monarch, which will be 6 months or a year later. And we will spend big money there. I mean, that will be a major celebration all over the country, I think so.
Coronation? What's
Yeah, the last coronation, every school child in England got a mug.
Yeah, but it depends. It depends on being ground.
Well, we will want to mark the occasion, whether it's a
Definitely.
massive do or a tiny do.
Oh yeah.
Poggy should go to work.
I think we should. Look, we're running out of time. Can we just pay attention?
Yes.
I'm serious about this. I think we should earmark some funds for Operation Westminster Abbey as opposed to Operation London Bridge. We have funds. We have more funds than we should have. We need to be earmarking funds. And I think this is a legitimate place to put some earmarked funds.
It is, but I'm also conscious that Councillor Bogson's bringing a proposal about playgrounds, which is, when he comes back
Well,
up the
there's,
stairs, it's
I
going to be
think
a
there's room
significant
for
amount
both.
of money.
We've got 60-odd thousand that needs earmarking, spending, or giving back to the public. Thereabouts.
Okay,
And it won't
but
be
I thought
there.
this...
So, Councillor Pogson, what I have suggested in your absence is a completely new item. You've heard about Operation London Bridge. It will be followed by Operation, I have named it Operation Westminster Abbey, 6 months or a year later, which will be big. It'll be as big as Platinum. Let's assume it'll be as big as Platinum.
Well, Chair, the only thing I'd say is it will be, but we discuss the budget every year, so we don't need to, and as I understand it from the advice we've had from the RFO, is that we need to move towards reducing our general reserves. We don't need to get rid of all of them
I'm not
straight
suggesting
away.
that we
And
do.
I'm just conscious of this proposal that Councillor Bogson is going to mention in a minute about potentially setting aside a large amount of money for the playgrounds, which it will just take a big chunk of almighty reserves if it is.
But I don't think it has to be either or.
Well, it doesn't, but we also don't need to earmark all the money we have. But anyway, maybe we should can we keep working down the list and then it's the things that we add at the end.
Service provision, it must be said, we've got only Mary here from service provision, sadly Sean is not well. Both the RFO and I are concerned that service provision has put in more or less exactly the same as last year for everything, and yet things like building materials and labour costs are massively
But with respect, this is what the committee has indicated that they want, and it's there.
Yeah, and this committee is called Finance and Management.
Yeah,
and the management is, and we are putting together a recommendation for the full council.
yes, we are F&M and we are there for oversight, yeah? If we seriously think that that committee doesn't have enough money to fulfil its commitments, then I think there's a reason to raise the point. If it's vastly going to overspend, or it's got money and what have you, but I see nothing here that I would comment either they're going to underspend or overspend. I think if they think they can do their commitments, I mean, they will have underspend on some of their budgets, and you know, you can't increase it when you've had, you know, I think we should trust the people on that committee.
Well, they've got, for instance,
I'll second that.
they've got, for instance, 0 for the Civic. The expended,
But that's perhaps an indication of how they're intending to not use their budget, and for us to.
hang on a minute, we own the Civic, and we need to make sure it's kept in decent repair.
Alright, so that's down to the Service Provision Committee. They've got their jobs, we've got ours. F&M's job isn't to tell the committees what to do, it's to ask them how much are they putting forward to pull the plan together.
Well,
it'd be full council, if full council wanted to
both the RFO and I are concerned about this. This isn't my concern alone. This is not some pat-calling concern, you know, to spend. Councillor Thompson has had his hand up for some time, then Rich.
So, the community asset, the whole first Civic Hall capital projects comes through service provision, yeah? And service provision, have they chatted to the Civic Hall and ascertained, are they going to likely to come for any money in the next year?
Yes.
We got the report from them.
I can give you figures.
The fact is that the service provision did not have that report before they last met, so they couldn't really comment on it. And in the minutes of that meeting, you know, they did say they would need to wait for more information, and that did come.
This is the information. And shall I tell you what's in it? Because Douglas and I asked for not official and not all coming to the parish, but things that the Civic needs to do over the next 5 years. And they're not wanting more this year, but over the next 2 years, not all from us, they've got a total of 120 odd that they need to spend, and the 3 years after that they've got a total of 300 and odd that they need to spend, and that's without the £250,000 to have green heating. So we need sensibly to be putting, they won't be coming to us for anything like all of that, but it's almost certain that they'll come to us for some of it.
Why have we got to spend 250,000 on
We haven't, we're not going to, I've just put that in.
Can I just clarify that, because the service provision have recommended having, as I read it, £30,000 set aside an earmarked reserve for the Civic Hall. And there's also, we have talked about the energy audit outcomes, which was
no, they've got 0 for the Civic Hall.
No,
in earmarked reserves.
Oh, sorry.
There's £50,000 for the Civic Hall.
Right. So, and there's also this COVID recovery over Civic Hall,
right,
which I think we could probably roll into the earmarked reserves for the general Civic Hall if we wish to do that. But there is, you know, we are setting aside money for the Civic Hall, and whilst this is a list of things that they're seeking support with, in practice they're also applying to an awful lot of other grant
Yes,
fund. So it's important we have some money there, but I think we do have some money there, but that's rather different from setting a budget that we're definitely expecting to spend.
When does service provision meet next?
February the 14th.
So it's after full council.
Madam Chairman,
And actually, can I just add one more thing? And I am interested, but Holly Library, 15,000, that's the quotes they had done 18 months ago. I don't believe that's going to be enough. That was the pre-COVID amount.
But again,
You've
they've
got
got
the earmark
30,000
reserve of
in.
30,000.
Right.
can I just make a point?
Yes.
I don't know how right it is, but I'm told that an award has been made to the Civic Hall by the Friends of Home Valley Hospital to the tune of £250,000.
Why would they be doing that?
Well, I'll find out about it.
It's
I'm
come
just
through,
thinking-
it came through, it was brought to my attention by another councillor, Councillor Hall, who got it from Councillor Roberts, I think, who is a friend of the...
Well, it wasn't raised at the meeting last
and
Wednesday.
the people, some of the people that are the friends of, on the committee of the Friends, are also on the committee of the Civic Hall. And I'm told there's been an award made, there's been a lot of money. The Friends of Home Valley Hospital get a lot of money left to them. And they must have a big surplus of money, bigger than what our surplus is. And they've made a grant towards the Civic Hall of £250,000.
Well, this hasn't...
What that's going to be spent on, I don't know.
That wasn't raised at the trustees meeting last Wednesday.
Well, it seemingly was before then when I got told about it.
So back to this, we've got the full council meeting. So perhaps it's a case, Chair, if you want to put a query into the chair of service provision, are they comfortable with the numbers? Or I mean, there's a lot of money in earmarked reserves. You might want to ask Rich to contact the chair and deputy chair of service provision and ask if they want to update the numbers. But I mean,
earmarked reserves are there for when they need it, you know, for something that's there. The budget is for money that we know we're going to spend that budget. We budget according to what we're going to spend.
But I think it is extremely likely that the Civic will want some money next year.
And between now and service provision, they manage their budget, and between now and full council, you know, if they want to come back to us and say, actually, we didn't have this knowledge and what have you, we want to amend it, whatever, they can amend it at that point. But I'm more than happy to go along with their recommendation.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Because there is still that opportunity, as outlined by the full council, to bump it up.
Right? Climate emergency. Shall I just go through the lines so that people can raise...
Can we just go over the other two in service provision? I've got red
Oh,
lines
sorry.
around. I mean, they're not that controversial, just CCTV and defibrillators. We've just had applications for both of those, an application for a defibrillator and CCTV. In Holly, we've got no budget. We do have earmarked reserves for both. But I just wanted to make you aware that they are being called on. So just for you to consider whether you need money in the budget.
So we know we need it, is what you're saying, as opposed to we're guessing.
Well, it is in earmarked reserves. It's
Yeah.
not. It's not.
so there's 5,000 for CCTV, there's 2,000 for defibrillators. S&P have decided that they don't need a regular budget item for it and that the reserves are sufficient.
Yeah.
That's how I'm reading.
Yeah, that's how I read it.
I really strongly, I don't think it's our job to second guess what other committees that have indicated they want. But if there is something that you're concerned about, then it would be right to flag it up at full council and put that to the...
It was just that the applications came in after those discussions had taken place.
Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from.
So we need to ask S&P about, to inform them about the Civic and and the CCTV and the defibrillator, and ask if they want to revise them. Shall we go through the remaining?
The main thing is to point out how much those applications are for, whether that clears out their entire earmark reserves or whether it's just an element of it.
If it's going to nibble at the earmarked reserves,
yeah,
You
well,
must
should
have
be-
might as well be left as it is,
might as well have it, we should be budgeting to top up the earmarked reserves. We should be running down the earmarked reserves, so when they're gone, then we may have to look at getting a budget line for them.
Is there a benefit to emptying earmarked reserves?
Well, ideally, I'd like to run a balanced budget where we have no reserves and we'd spend every year. We're not in the business of accruing money.
No, but for things we own, like the Civic and Holly Library,
These things we can't pay for in one
that's
year.
going to go on forever.
Yes, these
We
things
can't
we can't
pay for
pay
it
for in
one
one. No, but if we know what it's going to cost us on a yearly basis, and the running cost, the maintenance costs, we'd have a budget line and we'll get spent every year. But one of these things that we need to accrue over so many years and save up for, that's what you use earmarked reserves. But if we've saved up and not spent, such as defibrillators, we've got £2
I'm
for
with
defibrillators.
you. I'm with you.
The alternative line would be to
I'm with you.
put an amount in on the revenue budget, but then only earmark the reserves and shove that in. Otherwise, you kind of like putting the money aside twice.
Yeah.
So they've just decided that they're going to run the reserves down.
Yeah.
I don't see an issue with that. I really don't.
Okay.
The only issue with it is to flag up how far they go through those reserves for when it's budget setting next year.
Can I talk to the climate emergency item?
We need to go through the rest of. Are we happy with all the rest of
Yeah, CCTV and the defibs.
service provision? Yeah. Okay. Do climate emergency.
So the total is the same. So the main difference is moving monies to more accurately reflect where the money's spent. So the community mobilisation is effectively part of that is the cost of the climate emergency coordinator role. And the energy strategy is about implementing those energy audit outputs at Honley Library and Home Civic. So that is specifically what those are about. The transport strategy is sort of small amounts of money to enable some projects to work with two schools to encourage children to be able to walk to school more. And waste and consumption, environment and land use, they're small projects that are being led by the Climate Emergency Committee. The business economy is a new budget line because it's been identified that the most effective way to do communicating with the community is to be able to contact them, and we as a parish council do not have any form of database or even list of all the contacts that we have that we obviously generate through things like grant applications. So the proposal is to develop a database which would have all the organisations that are in the valley and ideally all the businesses, and ask them if they're happy for us to engage with them, to tell them about grant opportunities, to tell them about climate emergency initiatives that perhaps other businesses are doing. But we need a database of information to be able to do that. Whereas at the moment it's all a bit haphazard as to we know people that we already know.
That's encouraging people to come asking for money that we don't want to give
It's
them.
encouraging a better understanding of our community and its needs.
Well, once that committee's been disbanded, and saves us 50,000 a year and refer it to Kirklees to do it. Why we should be double taxed, I do not know.
Okay, so
We are a double tax ourselves.
When we get there,
are
we'll
we
discuss that.
agreed on climate emergency? Yes.
I'm not
You're
agreed.
not in favour. Can I see those in favour of
I'm in
climate
favour of getting
emergency?
rid of it.
It's passed.
Wasting
Uh,
money.
I'd like to
COVID
see it into the
relief.
climate emergency.
We've got a bunch of zeros in COVID relief. Do we want to remove this altogether?
Yes.
So that's a summary, we don't need to look. Income, are there any queries on income? Well, there's one here, rents and allotments. Well, we've altered that and we've agreed that. We don't know what Garside's going to be. It's a bit of an unknown, isn't it? So I don't know what we should put in there, really. We've got four and a half, 4 or 5, just short of £5,000. It depends if we end up in litigation of some sort, doesn't it?
It's for April onwards, I'm sort of, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Okay, so Do we want to get rid of donation for bench upkeep and neighbourhood planning grants as they are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we approve the income section?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
All those in favour? Yep. Money from reserves. Earmarked reserves. 2 to delete at the top.
Yeah.
CCTV 5,000. How many? Have we had applications from Honley and Home First for CCTV, or just Honley?
I'm not involved with the committee really. So I'm not
Councillor
sure.
Watson.
So, over last year we gave some money towards, I don't know if it's in this recent year or the previous financial year, I can't quite remember, but we did give money towards Homley, a significant amount, and through the Omnibus Association who sorts out the CCTV in Homley. We contacted the business association and some other people in Home Firth and made them aware that there was money available and it was something we would like to support, as if we supported Homley, but it's not a function that the parish council can actually carry out. We're not in the position of sorting that and arranging that, and so we said to them, if you come to the parish council with a proposal, then we will look at it quite favourably, and we kind of left the ball in their court. And the Builders Association in Home Firth sort themselves out and can come together with a proposal, or some other organisational group, but we've not got the capacity to organise that there, so that's where it is.
But, Rich, can you remember roughly how much the application is for?
Well, can't that just be revised at full council if there is
Yeah, I don't-
need to raise it?
It wasn't a huge amount.
But can you make this amount match? Can we approve giving Rich permission to put this amount up to match the application?
What's the application? Is this from Home Firth?
No, from Homley, they were wanting us.
Another one.
Well, they were wanting us to pay for their sort of ongoing
Maintenance.
maintenance,
Costs, yeah.
CCTV ongoing.
If it's an ongoing cost, then we need to sort of, have a budget that matches that, I suppose. If we're going, to pay it.
If it's an ongoing cost, it should go into service provision and not be in the earmarked reserves.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the point.
Which is a consideration for service provision, not.
Yeah, no, but they didn't know this application had come in.
They haven't considered whether they're going to approve it yet, have they?
I'm just talking about what we think is the best thing right now. I'm not talking about.
It's not for us to decide.
Yes.
Look, we can leave everything exactly where it is, even if it's in the wrong place, if that's what you want to do.
I mean, they can, if they decide to go for it, they can just pay it from the earmarked reserve. It's not a huge problem. It's, we can,
but it's going to crop up
if it needs an annual thing, we can work that out next year once we see what the decision is.
Okay.
We said we weren't going to do annual payments, and we've done two tonight in the grants that they come in every year for it. And we said, look, let them stand on their own feet. They've got enough money. And
we haven't given anything that they're coming every year for.
we have to the arts festival. People and the Bull Festival.
We pay for the buses every year.
The buses are a different thing.
Why?
Well, it's a service.
Right, F&M.
Buses are service. They don't provide a service. Them two that block the bloody street and make my customers struggle to get through.
Moving on from CCTV, F&M Community Assets.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Pubs and Commons Neighbourhood Planning. Do we need anything earmarked for that? Pubs and Commons?
I think that could come out, can't it?
Can
Zero.
Yes,
Yeah.
Because we've already put in a neighbourhood planning implementation budget.
Yeah.
Do we want to add Westminster Abbey to this list? I want to.
Sorry, Chair, can I just say, going back, I'm sorry to take us back, but the subcontractor service in legal advice contingency, we are still going to leave. I know it says delete this line, but in conversations I had with Rich earlier today, we do need 5,000 contingency for each of those, because in case we do need to call.
No, I didn't say that. No, you must have misunderstood me. No, I just said that your general reserve ultimately becomes a contingency, so you can just get
Right.
You can just get rid of those. Obviously, we'll need to move that 10 grand somewhere else. That was probably the point I was making. We'd need to do something else with it.
Well, it'd be on earmarked then, wouldn't it?
It would just, yeah, it would just go back into general reserve.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry,
That's
just
why
cross purposes.
misunderstanding, apologies.
So we're getting rid of neighbourhood planning line.
Yeah,
And
The elections we've already talked about, haven't we?
yeah, it's on the service for charity fund for defibrillating, blah, 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 blah.
yeah, that needs to stay.
And then we've got a couple of COVID.
So I would suggest that we roll 327 into 329 and get rid of 327.
Yeah.
Put it into the Civic.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's an earmark.
Yeah, yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you'll be delighted to hear this next one. I suggest that we get rid of 328 and we use that money to create an earmarked reserve for, what did you call it on the bit, Royal and National Events?
Westminster, I think.
Royal and National Events.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Councillor Briggs. Thank you very much indeed.
That's right, we're going now.
And I did say, the big thing about a coronation is you get a day off work, but not you, Councillor Foxton. You will be having to go to work.
I'll be quite happy to go to work.
You'll get quite a lot
There's
done
probably
now.
a good chance, there's probably my current role, there's a good chance I will be working that day.
I've got to be
Keep
working.
noise down.
I've got to be working that day. They won't let me work.
Oh.
Can we support those proposals?
Right.
Yeah, are we going to vote on
Yes.
those? Yeah.
The first one, to move 327 into 329. All those in favour? Passed. And to move 328 into a new Westminster Abbey fund.
Probably
All
let's
those
not
in
call it
favour?
Westminster Abbey Fund, because I might need the
Yeah, we maybe shouldn't call it
Royal
that,
and
but
National
you know.
Events.
Royal and
Do not preempt.
No, we can preempt a coronation.
I think
Significant royal
it's
event.
a season to discuss the death of the monarch.
I'm considering that Charles going to do a decent thing and die in the next 5 years, and the Queen's going to live to be 100. So we'll good one. There'll be one day's holiday less because there won't be two coronations in the same year.
Come on, we're doing so well, we might get out of here.
So we're going to call it National and Royal Events, not Westminster Abbey.
Yes.
Okay.
Otherwise, all our local churches are going to go mental when they discover that you can even give 13 pounds to
Yes,
exactly.
Right. So 330 office and meeting room, longer term reshape. Yeah, we need to look at this room and its inadequacy for the public and things. Really.
And did we ever get sorted the lights?
I beg your pardon.
Just the lights in this room, I'm sure we passed the motion about getting the lights sorted in this room.
Well, I think that part of the electrical update will include those kind of things, so.
The Civic is going to change all the bulbs in the building.
Okay.
That's what the energy audit monies will pay for as well.
Brighter ones, please.
Yes,
More of them.
Yeah, so there's money there for looking at what we can do with this room, or whether there's another room in the building or whatever. I'm still don't know. Service, toilets, 5 grand, yeah. Library, 30 grand, yeah. The tech, 30. Which we've already, which we've just spent, haven't we?
No, take
We spent the 10 from
Civic
last
is
year,
30.
but we need to allocate for next year.
So Civic was 13, is now 40, but the line you're looking at, 333, is for the tech, and that is 10,000.
Yes.
Why do we have to fund the tech when it's a business?
It's not a profit making business.
It is.
It's not.
It's
Community limited by guarantee.
Okay, well, I think we should vote on
the only
this.
thing that's not for profit is something that isn't working.
Let's.
And if they're making profit, they give it to
You're
the
missing the
they give
third
it to
section.
the director.
Okay,
So
let's.
they don't seem to be.
Can I move us to a vote?
I worked very hard at this meeting and I've not made a profit.
I want to vote on item 333. All those in favour of the recommendation?
Yeah.
Passed. Thank you. Pubs and Con Memorial.
Right, this is a proposal that pubs and cons are looking at, that we ought to have some sort of monument to commemorate the impact of COVID on the community. Given it's such a significant event, so we're looking at
I'm
costing
just
up
wondering,
potions.
it can't just be Home Firth, it should be every village, really, probably. Certainly.
Well, no, we're thinking about potentially a sculpture. Where it goes can be debated, but we don't need to have something, you know.
For the entire valley.
Yeah.
The entire valley, the main feature is the war memorial down at the hospital. If there was a site...
No, every village has its own war.
Yes, I know that, but what I'm saying is there is a war memorial there, which has everybody on it, from all sides of the whole valley. And we all have our own individual ones, but that is the one that's central between Homley and Home Firth. It's like saying we keep Home Firth and Homley separate. What I'm saying is if we could put something on the ground, in the grounds there, that would cover the whole of the home valley, and we only have to do one rather than
Right,
than
everybody
all the
wants to
individual
talk.
ones.
Councillor Ponson, then Councillor Graves, then Councillor Hogley.
It's great to hear that Councillor Dixon is so enthusiastic about having this in the Home Valley Memorial Hospital, but I think we should debate where it's going to be, what it's going to be when we've got more meat on the bones of what it is and where it is. But I look forward to that debate at a later date. Are we going to give them the money or not?
Well, it's just in
Who's wanting the money?
All those
Nice council to provide this thing.
Yes, exactly.
So, in light of all the conversations that we've already had, I'm going to propose that we accept all 6 new earmarked reserves as shown.
Right. I have one question on the home loss viewpoint. Have you put sufficient in there? I don't think that is anywhere near enough.
I think it would be good to add more to it, but that budget, that item was because that was what was left over in the chairman.
Because I think that it will pay for one auditor to go up there and do a health and safety check on it, I should think. I think
What are we proposing to put up there?
Do you want to describe it?
The intention is to put a viewpoint thing that tells you what you can see from the top of Home Moss. So it's got to be developed over.
Could we get consent from the Peak Park to put it
Yes,
up?
I've already liaised with the Peak Park and Yorkshire Water about the potential of it, and they are supportive of the principle, but obviously it needs working out the detail, but there are 1,000 there.
The money that's in there, Paul, at the moment is the money Rachel did not spend. Councillor Pogson.
Do we anticipate the next financial year we'll have some actual meat on the bones of how much it's going to cost, where it's going to be, and what have you, and at that point we can sort out the finances.
Yeah,
right.
That day, that's
I'm
fine.
happy with that.
So leave it 935.
Okay, so going back to Councillor Greaves' suggestion that we vote on the last 1, 2, 3, however many. All those in favour?
Can I just make a point though? I mean, it is slightly dodgy because we've kind of double accounted in a sense, because I have put this money through the budget line of climate emergency for this year, and then it's also going through as an earmark reserve.
But that was because we're concerned that it wouldn't actually be spent by the end of this year. We don't want the money to disappear.
So we're getting double taxed by emergency committee, and then we tax in ourselves.
No, we're not doing tax and double accounting.
How do we avoid that?
Well, I just think that you perhaps need to be more, less kind of defined about what you've called them. I would just bundle all the transport stuff into a single line, and the energy into a single line called energy, and the other one into a single line called transport. And then they're not about those things that we've already accounted for. There are more general
earmark
reserve, yes. Do you understand what I mean?
Well, if the RFO thinks that's a better way of doing it,
well, it feels less.
Do we have any
does feel a bit dodgy
concerns about it?
If that's a better way of doing it, I don't want to be seen to be asking for the same money twice, because we don't want it twice. We just are conscious that by the time it gets spent, we don't want it to be after to disappear.
Yeah, but the fact is though, I mean, as we found with the 40,000 for the Civic, I mean, you know, you can spend it, it's just, it just makes, you know, just
I'm
end
happy to
with
go
the
with
deficit-
whatever works
the
best
deficit
from a
budget.
budgetary perspective.
Okay, well, let's roll them into two budget lines, two earmark reserve lines, one for transport and one for energy. Okay?
Can I just raise the fact that Councillor Boxon was going to say about playgrounds?
Yeah, of course.
Was, yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I was hoping there would be more meat on the bones to it, but it's not because of various reasons. I'm hoping that Councillor Paul Davis will be here. But we discussed at the last full council meeting regarding possibility of us supporting the redevelopment of the playgrounds throughout the whole valley. And I was hoping we'd have a bit more of a financial than what we're actually looking at. But we don't have that. But in the absence of that, I believe something around the ballpark figure of £80,000 to be spent over so many years.
80 over a few years.
Yeah, they're not going to deliver all in one year, so it will be over the next few years. But we should move £80,000 from general reserves into earmarked reserves for playground. Yeah, I think just for playgrounds, refurbishment.
Yeah, playgrounds.
Oh, I said we waited money from somewhere else for it.
Well, the vast bulk is coming from.
That's the bulk of it. The vast bulk of it comes from Kirklees, isn't it?
80 is a drop in the ocean of the total.
We're paying 80 towards the overall cost, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes. No, we're earmarking 80,000 that we're going to earmark it as for the playgrounds.
Yeah.
We could pay for that over the next so many years. We may not pay it all in one go.
What if Kirklees have done the but do we need to still do it?
Right, okay, so
I'm just lost.
The reality of it is that this is one of those items where you could spend as much as you've got available.
Yeah.
So there's loads and loads of kits available. So the big issue that's happened is Kirklees' original budget, which was about 13 million quid. Okay, well, all that was based upon pricing from about 2 years ago, with modest increases, and it's gone all over the shop now.
Yeah.
So when they're actually going out to companies to get them to quote for the first phases of work, the actual bids that are coming back are looking nothing like what they were 2 or 3 years ago. So for the scheme I'm working on in Jagger Lane, effectively what they've done is they've pared it back to almost the minimum, because the way costs have escalated, that's what the sure that the budget allocation divvied up can afford. So that means that actually we're having to drop stuff that we really would like to have seen included. And that's where parish council could step forward and help out. So Kirklees is spending every single penny that he originally committed to. It's just won't go as far as we previously were expected to do. And so to help bridge some of that gap, if parish council step forward, then we can actually do something meaningful for lots and lots of people all over the valley. That's effectively it.
We can buy specific bits of equipment.
And it's something this parish council has done previously.
Done in the past, they did, yes.
Yeah.
So that you're proposing 80 grand.
80 grand to move from general reserves into earmarked reserves. Is that possible?
Where does that leave us with general reserves, Rich?
Oh God, it's controversial.
Drop it on him, he don't quite get us to 25%,
Well,
it moves us some of the way.
In terms of the, I mean,
Yeah.
get the calculator.
It's another full one, but it does some of the heavy lifting.
The calculations I did this afternoon is that our total general reserves are 187274. If we take 80 out, that will leave us with roughly 100, just over 100.
Yeah, but we're not earmarked.
Cheers, Bob.
I think we've earmarked some more as we've gone along.
There's lots of other stuff to figure
If
into.
you're going for me when you went before, it'd be better.
I understand.
So we'll have done more than a token gesture to move in the right direction.
Well, we may have gone too far. I'm just because we'll be overspent this year by about 13 grand, and then our budget for next year will have gone up by 34 grand, and then we put another 100. We put 100 grand on earmark reserves, so that's 147,000 that we've newly spent or earmarked.
Can I just make a suggestion that if we're suddenly feeling like we've gone to town too much, that earmark reserve 323, which is community assets, other community assets, of 9,723, could be put into the, could be taken off whatever we'd set aside as the other community assets grants, because that can effectively feed nearly £10,000 of that grant. Because otherwise that's just sitting there, isn't it? It's effectively nearly an extra 10 grand.
So just make that zero.
Yeah.
So
And then
Make
move
that
that
zero and put it
9,000.
into playground.
And that gives you 10,000 at the other end.
Well, I wasn't going to put it in playgrounds, put it into the other community assets as well.
Yeah, and just take that off the budget.
Yeah. So it buys you 10 grand, nearly 10
Yes.
grand.
Okay.
You've lost me.
Well, so there's £9,723
Yeah.
in an earmark reserve for other
Yeah.
community assets. But we've already got higher up a budget
80 on.
where we said no
50 on.
53,
Yeah.
which we kept at the same. Well, we could take that 9,000 and then we to add into that to make it still effectively 53 that we've got to spend, but we're not having, but we're using the 9 and a bit thousand for it, so we're only asking for 43 and a half.
I have no idea what you...
I
If
think,
we get
Rich, you
53
understand?
and we
Yeah, I
have
understand,
9,000...
I'm just making that zero basically, and,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
relying on the money, the 53 grand. That's all we're going to spend. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
That's it. Simple
So it
as
seems a bit
that.
silly having a budget.
So we're taking the 9 from earmarked cask
Yeah.
and giving it to playground.
Well, it just
No.
goes into general reserve.
Well, effectively, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
No, it's going into earmarked reserves, not general
No, it's
reserves.
already in an
It's
earmark
going into
reserve.
general. It's going into general.
It goes into
reserve.
general reserve.
So if there's any other gap, then bearing in mind the timescale over which the playground one is likely to be spent, then
Drop that down.
Councillor Hobson's indicated 80,000, but if to make the magic work it needs to be 72, then maybe that's the number for this set of accounts and we can review that.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, my point I think was that we should be moving towards this 25% rather than diving straight into it. It feels like we're diving head first into it. That's
the right solutions.
a
One
change.
word from you, Rich, and we jump.
That's basically redistributing £137,000 from our general reserves. Where we how much did you say we have? About 170.
It's on the very big bit of paper. I said we had 187274 in general reserve.
So that would be getting to us. I mean, we'd have less than we should have.
Right.
Okay, knock down the playgrounds.
Can I make a suggestion? I think, although as a committee we've approved all these figures, I think they should be subject to ratification over the next 48 hours or so, where Rich has a chance. Hang on, let me finish, Rich. You do need this. A chance to do his adding up when he's not in a room with a load of people changing their mind all the time. And make sure that the numbers we've just approved actually work.
I mean, doesn't it make more sense with regard to the playgrounds that we put a chunk in, like about 30 or 40,000, and we add to that year on year, like we do with election budgets and everything else. I mean,
Well, yes, because it's not all going to happen.
do we need to go diving in with such a big chunk?
Well, I'd rather see it larger rather than smaller.
Yeah.
But
Maybe
yeah,
we
it
could
doesn't
make
need
it
to be the
50
80.
rather than 80.
We can leave it with you, Richard, to do it such that whatever the number drops out as, it does not cause issues.
Yeah, but you're dealing with somebody who's a bit risk averse. So
I take your risk aversion on board, but for the playground thing, I have to kind of look at the things in the whole. For the playground thing to happen, the easy thing for Kirklees Council to do is just scale it back. We're relying on outside finance that may or may not come. We'll just scale it back and deliver what we've got budget for. If we can go to Kirklees Council and say, we have it there earmarked of so much money, we can add that and we're prepared to spend that and we'll earmarked in their reserves, they can have the confidence to go ahead and do what they need to do. Whereas a promise to us will make it up, but in his EMAC reserve, they've only got 10% of that, may not make them commit.
I think 50 or 60,000 should be fine for this year, bearing in mind the speed at which they're not delivering them.
Yeah.
Now, I think we need officially to approve all these numbers to go forward to full council. We clearly need to give Rich a bit of time to do his sums, not in a room with loads of people discussing stuff. So I think Rich needs to email us in the next 48 hours and for us to ratify the decisions we've approved tonight. Michael?
I have difficulties with that course of action because it relies a lot on the clerk. I think we should instruct the clerk with clear instructions of what we want to be done and what we don't want to be done. So I think we can either do it two ways. We can say a number like that, 50,000, and let it work out at what it works out at, or we could say make up the playground to whatever figure that leaves the reserves at 30%.
If we put...
25% is the recommended. If we say to live to 30%.
If we put 50,000 into the playground, that will mean, in terms of the movement from general reserves, so that's 56, about 100,000 would go from general reserves, and you said there was...
187274.
So that will leave 87.
And we're supposed to have 60 some as a
Yeah,
requirement?
it's about 70 something, isn't it?
So about 70 some, so it's still a bit over.
Where's your office?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
That feels about right.
Okay.
That's good.
It's supposed to be 68.
Well, it's not supposed to be, but...
That's the
Right,
guide.
the recommended amount
Yeah.
would be 68. And what have you just said that we how much for playground?
50.
50, and that would leave us with
80.
70
50,
something.
so 50, 84, 90, 99, yeah, 70,
90.
about 80,000.
About 80, as opposed to the 68.
I will have to
as
work
recommended.
That's that, yeah.
So I have to work it out.
Yeah, but if we say 50,000 and then we'll...
Yeah.
So I'm finishing the meeting, or
That's
we're
my
going
proposal.
to adjourn to the old bridge so we can stay overnight.
I would like to thank you all.
Oh,
Whoa.
Congratulations.
Is there a preset thing? Oh, that's quite finished.
We ain't got any money left to reduce it.
I think freezing is as generous as we can be with the preset, isn't it?
Yeah, we could...
Yeah.
Recommendations for freeze and preset.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Yeah.
Almost in favour. Passed.
Nice one.
Thank you, everybody. We have achieved a huge amount tonight.
We have.
And I think...
But I've not made a profit as well.
and we're encouraging people just to come and ask for money.
Yes.
But we are still being discerning.
Oh, apart from yogis. Apart from yogis.